It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and we speak English here at Patapoo seriously. Je maintiendrai. Je maintiendrai.
It's incredible.
Yes. Are you allowed to wait?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not even on air yet.
Yes.
So,
in a special, we have a special broadcast because Sean Connery has died.
In English?
I don't know.
What is it?
The death of Sean Connery meant the end of the 20th century, I read somewhere.
Is that so?
Yeah.
But it's already 2020.
But he was still around, being 20th century-ish. This is a special election broadcast for Patapoo seriously.
Yes, and we are going to broadcast until at least 5 o'clock in the morning, because that is more or less the time that it should become clear whether Trump will be maybe 4 more years in office or not. But then again, you never know, of course. Anyway, let's start. We have a whole bunch of people that we are going to call all over the globe tonight. Yeah. And I have to say hello, or we have to say hello to our listeners at Globalista Radio Kit as well, because we have a cooperation with this famous Berlin radio outfit.
Unbelievable. But
Globalista Radio
nice.
Kit listeners, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
We are going to try to have some interactivity later on tonight, but it all depends on certain equipment working properly. So first of all, I think we kick off with a pre-recorded interview that our host G made this afternoon with a guy called Donald Fleming, who is a kind of expert on US voting. I would say let's start the interview. Is that a good idea?
Yeah. I give it a little push.
And in the background, of course, you hear a very, very old song that seems to be more or less appropriate for this particular election night, because in my view at least, Trump is the ghost rider.
So here's Donald Fleming about the elections.
Yes. The USA is a country divided. This year presents the American people with a very...
I don't hear him.
I don't hear it now. We put
it's not only a referendum on Trump, but it's about the direction the
US...
start it again.
We started again. Yeah.
And that more or less has been the USA is a country divided. The election of this year presents the American people with a very, very serious choice. It's not only a referendum on Trump, but it's about the direction the US will go in as a society. And that more or less has been the messaging from both campaigns. So to put it broadly, the Democrats are asking, are we going to be a tolerant, inclusive, humane, fair society, ready to move into the 21st century as a truly multicultural nation with an innovative economy, which is less damaging to the planet, and in which all Americans can take part and benefit from, a social democracy, if you will, with a safety net and salaries where people don't have to live the edge of poverty, even if they work really, really hard. The Republican narrative, on the other hand, is that the status quo is being threatened, that trickle-down economy works, that Wall Street, not Main Street, is an indication of a healthy economy, that people are poor because they're stupid or lazy, that taxation is theft, and if you can't make it, that's your problem. That the haves have because of their work, and the have-nots are just losers. Underlying this, of course, is the basic DNA of the USA. Everyone is equal and has equal opportunity, but white Christians have more rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness than anybody else. Well, as you likely know, the president is not elected by popular vote, but rather by electoral votes. the infamous Electoral College. The larger the population of the state, the more electoral votes it has. The winner of the popular vote in the state gets all the electoral votes, except in Maine and Nebraska, where they're proportionate. To win, the candidate needs to get 270 electoral votes. Many states are clearly Democratic or Republican or considered safe, but the others are known as the swing states, and how they vote often determines the election outcome. The swing states have a large number of electoral votes, are the coveted prizes, and often considered needed to win. So campaigns strategize and focus on winning them. Some are perennial swing states, like, for example, the northern Midwest, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, which Clinton lost by very small margins in 2016. Other places that were once considered safe or GOP states, safe red states, have surprisingly moved into the toss-up category, namely Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, Arizona. This year, the big prizes are Florida, with 29 electoral votes, but even more so, and it might come down to it, Pennsylvania, with 20 electoral votes. With Florida, because it can count the mail-in votes before Election Day, it'll probably and most likely be able to report and declare a winner sometime on Wednesday. Pennsylvania, on the other hand, cannot start to count its mail-ins until Election Day and will accept ballots up to 3 days after Election Day. So it won't report until maybe Saturday. North Carolina has until the 10th of November to report. So there will not be a winner known on Tuesday night, despite what Donald Trump might say, and everyone more or less is saying that he is going to claim victory, and it might appear that way. It's widely expected there's going to be this red mirage, as they call it, and that the Election Day results will favor Trump. But as the mail-ins are counted, there will be a blue wave adjusting the count. This is pretty standard, but the GOP, the Republicans, have tried to sell this as stealing the election, which of course is nonsense. The television networks and social media like Facebook and Twitter have more or less said they will not predict a winner until all the votes are counted, or at least until the margins are very clear. Trump showed his hand early and made it clear that the GOP would try various voter suppression tactics. And who knows, maybe this was partially to cover his ass so that when he loses, they can claim the election was rigged. At the same time, the Democrats have mobilized and warned people what was going on and how important it was to protect their right to vote and how important it was to use it. It will be the biggest turnout in American history, surpassing 150 million people. Apparently, there are over 400 court cases filed already, and lawyers are waiting in the wings, mostly to challenge or defend votes, some of which will be invalidated for technical reasons. The GOP lawyers, and maybe even some right-wing radicals, are going to perhaps do the best they can to create chaos and confusion, and perhaps making it impossible to certify the results of the election. But that remains to be seen. It could lead to a constitutional crisis, but we won't discuss that today. There are a couple of tricky court cases that may wind up in the Supreme Court, which is perhaps the worst case scenario, considering that it's generally considered to be pro-Trump. One of the biggest ones is in Texas, where the GOP is trying to disqualify close to 127,000 votes because they were cast in tents and not in official polling stations. The other is in Pennsylvania, which is now separating all the ballots postmarked and received after Election Day. The Supreme Court didn't hear the case, but they reserved the right to do so after Election Day. So we don't know what that actually means. Trump has gone so far as to say, we're going to win this thanks to the Supreme Court. What he was referring to, we don't know. They could come around and decide that the votes received after Election Day or the ballots received after Election Day in Pennsylvania are not valid, which would determine perhaps the election, since Pennsylvania is the prize that both candidates are going for. What is the best case scenario? Well, the best case scenario, of course, would be that the margins are so significant that a winner can be declared sooner than later. And of course, hopefully those margins would be in Biden's favor. The East Coast will tell a lot. Florida, if Biden wins, would be very, very handy, and he'd be well on his way to getting his electoral votes, and it would be very difficult for Trump to make it up. Biden has many more routes by getting different states together, less so than Trump does. Ideally, Biden will carry the Great Lakes, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, which would easily put him over the edge. I think my advice to everyone who's listening and anyone who might want to look at the situation is to not expect there to be results and don't jump to any conclusions. Again, like I said, unless the margins are significant. I would hope, and I hope that people will join me in this hope, that the USA doesn't start tearing itself apart. I mean, there's a huge fence around the White House right now, and all across the USA, they're putting wood over all the windows. There's an expectation that there's going to be civil unrest and perhaps violence. Americans are very resilient people, but 2020 has been a really, really, really tough year. And the polarization has become even more and more entrenched. On the other hand, the upside of it is people have demonstrated that they care, they're involved. that they can mobilize when something is important to them. They don't want their country to be destroyed. I think Americans love their country. Will these wounds take some time before they're healed? Yes, they will. But it's going to be not only a painful couple of weeks until this election is over, until the inauguration, there's going to be some bad blood and bitterness. In my opinion, the Biden-Harris people and the people who they're going to place inside the government will do their best to unify and govern a country that belongs to everybody and not to only Trump supporters, which is not only to their supporters, but to all Americans.
All across America, the song of freedom rings, a song that's growing stronger every day. It tells us when we listen to the message that it sings. Let us lift our voices. We can make the choices.
It was Donald Fleming.
We will make the most of all the best.
But to prove seriously.
This was Donald Fleming.
Donald Fleming.
I think it's a good idea if we do a short call with G, who did the interview.
Yeah.
So that he can explain a little bit who Donald Fleming is, and he also wanted to make some comments eventually about his contributions. So G, I'm gonna call you. One moment. Let's see if that's gonna happen.
All over America, a quiet revolution.
Hey, hello. Hi. Okay, so you did the interview this afternoon with Donald Fleming. Maybe a few words about Donald Fleming. What kind of a guy is he?
Yeah, well, Donald is basically a friend of mine. He fled New York, Hoboken, in the 80s because being a gay dancer at the time he felt pretty outcasted, and he's been struggling. Whether he would live in Europe or Amsterdam, to be specific, he struggled. Whether he personally struggled, whether he would live in Amsterdam or in New York, and it took him over a period of 10 years to make that decision. And the main reason he wanted to live in Amsterdam in the end was that he put it very well. He just said, the European society is more humane, and that was his personal motivation. And ever since he lives here, he's a resident now for like 15 years. He's got more involved with American politics because he's amazed every day by what's happening in his home country. So that's his personal motivation.
Okay. Now you did. The interview this afternoon, but you had some problems with the reply of Donald to your last question. Can you explain that?
Donald was sort of what he was saying was like that if the American people would choose for Joe Biden, then there would be unity. Well, in my opinion, it's exactly the opposite. If you look at the Democratic Party, it's not a party at all. It's being run as a corporation. The Democratic Party, of course, has been very good at sidelining their base. Most of the popular policies are that the base wants to see realized are being frustrated and being frustrated and being destroyed basically by the Republican Party itself. So you just can't say that the Democratic Party is able to translate the wishes and the interests of their base into proper policies, let alone that they would fight for it in the House or in Congress. So I mean, to make this a solid program tonight with a valid content, we can't oversee the fact that a neoliberal in the White House is just as bad as having a neo-fascist in the White House. Mm-hmm. And I think we have lots of interesting commentators, philosophers, and analysts that can amplify that fact.
Yeah. Okay. So. Let's close this conversation then. We will for sure come back to you later on tonight. But yes. First we're going to call with Ingeborg Beugel, who is waiting for us in Athens, in Greece. She's a regular guest in our radio program. Because lately lots of bad things have happened to the refugees in Greece, especially on Lesbos, in the camp of Moria that went up in flames. But of course she will also has some views and some thoughts to share about the American elections, because, well, let's face it, they have global implications, so as well for the refugee situation. So for the moment, thank you, and we'll get back to you later on. Bye bye.
Yes, I will get our Canadian friend. I will try to get our Canadian friend Dwayne on the stream. Okay.
Yeah, do that. Okay. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, that was our friend G.
Our friend G.
And we are now going to phone Ingeborg, who is waiting.
Yeah.
As I said. In Greece. Let's see if she's still there. Ingeborg Beugel.
Hey, Menno.
Hi, Ingeborg. How are you doing? I'm talking English to you because we are in international radio station right now, because the stream is being broadcasted or restreamed, I don't know how do you call that, in Berlin by Globalista Radio Kit from Berlin. So we have much more listeners this time than we usually have. But the downside, of course, is that we have to do everything in English. I don't think that you will mind.
Not at all. I've been listening to you guys from the moment you started. Very interesting, this Fleming person.
Yes. Okay. Hey, first of all, because you live in Athens or in Greece, and you are very keen on the refugee situation there. And last week you sent out an urgent message to us about the refugees, especially on Lesbos. Can you say something about that? Because that may be even more important than American elections right now.
Yeah, well, Menno, it was the most horrible week for refugees in Greece ever. When I talked to you guys, it was Thursday night. And then a series of catastrophes have happened. In the first place, very early in the morning, Friday morning, Greek police, you know, these special riot police guys who are dressed like Robocops, they appeared at a very small reception center for refugees on Lesbos called Pikpa. In the high times there were like 660 refugees there. Now there were like 75 persons and children, especially children, left. This was an alternative little refugee camp, if you want, with very safe conditions, good showers, good toilets, nice bedrooms. The children there would go to local Greek schools. But for extreme right-wing political reasons, this beautiful, humane, hope-giving center at dawn Friday with a lot of police intimidation that traumatized the children, this beautiful center was evacuated. And the people were transported to a much bigger camp called Karatepe, a bit further away. And it was horrible. The aid workers were not allowed to be with their refugees, who were all crying and very upset. It reminded them of war, that they fled. Bear in mind that this little center is where the most vulnerable refugees are sent to, like the handicapped people or people with chronic diseases. Anyway, so that was evacuated on Friday. Then on Saturday night, there were fires again in the Moria 2.0 camp. Yeah, you can't believe it, because Moria 1 was burned down completely in September. In no time, a horrible, not sufficient for winter, even more hellish camp was so-called built, Moria 2.0, and there was a fire again on Saturday night that scared so many people. This place has now 7,000 people in the mud, without showers, without toilets, and then fire again. 2 huge tents were burned down, and like 40 people again without at least a tent roof above their head. Oh, I forgot, on Friday, during the day, before Saturday, there was an earthquake. A big, big earthquake on Samos and Lesbos, and the other side on Turkey. 2 Greeks lost their lives, no refugees, thank God, because that's the only advantage of tents. You don't die easily when a tent crumbles, but when whole cities do, yeah. Many, many deaths, like 100 in Turkey. Very traumatizing for the refugees, especially on Samos. That was Friday. Saturday, the fire in Moria. And as if that was not enough, the also horrible camp, refugees camp on Samos, called Vastis. Everybody knows about Moria. But Vastis, there are 8,000 people and there's only place for 1,000. Burned down. Just like Moria in September. Sorry. It has burned down for 90%. And I have 3 boys in Camp Vastis, refugees, young boys, all around 23. One from Sierra Leone, one from Nigeria, and one from Sudan, that I support from a distance. You know, I send boxes with meds and food and clothes. They all called me, and they were completely losing it. They were really like, I was really afraid. They were screaming, they were showing with their little phones on camera the fires, and they were like exploding with fear, but also exhaustion. These people wait for 5 years for even to begin their asylum procedure. And to tell you guys the truth, I was afraid that they would do something stupid. So this was a horrible week, and now we have the elections.
Yeah, it may become even more horrible. We don't know, of course. But then again, 4 years ago, most people thought that Trump would not win. And eventually he did. So we may be in for a nasty surprise again. I'm not so sure. How are your thoughts about this? What do you think is likely to happen? And what, more importantly, what would be the consequences, for example, for a country like Greece, or for that matter, for the refugee situation?
Well, first of all, I saw this amazing BBC trilogy early this morning, like from 4 o'clock this morning until I binged watched it. I couldn't stop. For anyone who has not seen it, it's an absolute must-see. It's called The Trump Show. BBC, it was broadcast on Dutch television, VPRO, but it's on YouTube. Everybody can see it. It is a crushing documentary series. It is so well made, old school BBC, real top quality journalism. And it gives you the whole 4 years of Trump. You know, you and I, everybody, we all know it. I mean, so much has happened. But here you see chronologically what the fuck has happened with this Trump. It is really breathtaking. And after having seen this series, I think I finished it 8 o'clock this morning. I took a walk and I thought about it, and I thought, you know, there is a big fat chance that Trump might win.
Yes.
And I did not have a good day because this series shows that this guy, Trump, is such a king of entertainment. Has nothing to do with ethics, politics, the good of the people. Subsequently, there is a fantastic article in the Dutch magazine, De Groene Amsterdammer, which is called The White House Corporation. And the series, together with this article, give you a complete insight in what is going on. And what has been going on is Trump has used the White House to enrich himself, his family, and the 0.1% of the super rich in America flawlessly. This in a time he was, by the way, consulted but by the devils themselves, Bannon and Giuliano. This Giuliano guy in this series, you have to see him, shivers down your spine. I mean, he outright calls the Black Lives Matter Antifa movement communists that will destroy America. So to resume, Trump actually was only weakened by Corona because his big card was the economy, and the economy, you know, the stock market and so on was doing well. Corona stopped that. So actually, I began to think maybe Corona was invented to stop Trump. But then, at the height of the Corona hell in America, George Floyd died, and the Black Lives Matter movement came up, and that was again into the advantage of Trump. If Trump wins again, it will be a disaster for the whole world, Greece and the refugees especially included. Mind you, there is another documentary series on Netflix. It's called Immigration Nation. It is a historical document because it is Trump's eyes filmed from the inside during 3 years of Trump's reign. And you see what he did with this task force, this police force, ICE, and undocumented people in America. It's heartbreaking and enraging. And this is what he wants to do with refugees and undocumented people worldwide. I think I'm being realistic. Don't call me pessimistic because, you know, I don't believe in politics anymore. And Trump is the emperor of the empire of the evil. And unfortunately, in this time where so few people know anymore what is true and what is not true, with Corona, with the algorithms on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, we are fucked.
Yes, we are definitely fucked. And even if Trump will not win, we may still be fucked. Because, of course, Biden is, as G already said, a slightly better option than Donald Trump, but not a much better option.
No, I totally agree. It was the Hillary Clinton a repetition, right? I mean, I still think that at the time when Hillary was trying to beat Trump, it was a historical mistake of the Democrats to not have put Bernie Sanders.
Yes, definitely. Okay, hey, we're going to call someone else right now. Thank you very much for your contribution. It was very clear, and I hope that lots of people will watch these documentaries that you mentioned. And let's keep in touch. Probably, maybe even next Thursday again. But I'll contact you before that. Okay?
Okay. Well, may all the gods in the world, including the Greek gods. I'm an atheist, but for this night, may all the gods in the world be with us and make Trump lose. Let's get rid of him. Please, America.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Ingeborg.
Patapoe, seriously? Je maintiendrai?
This was Ingeborg Beugel from Athens, Greece.
Activism
about
art.
The refugee situation in Greece and about the elections, of course.
Right.
What?
That we are fucked.
Yes, and short summary, we are fucked. We are in for some very bad times. Now, we are going to make a call with Berlin, not with the Global Lister radio kit, for that matter. That will happen a little bit later on. But with someone called Mohammed Salemi. He is an Iranian who fled Iran already years ago and first went to the US. He lived in New York for a while, but since a couple of years he lives in Berlin. Mohammed is, among other things, an artist. I like him very, very much, and it's a real honor to have him in the show. So I'm gonna call him. Let's see if he's there. Oops. Something went wrong. Let's try again.
Oh.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Mohammed. This is Menno calling from Amsterdam.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
How are you doing? Can you hear me well?
Yes. A little bit soft, but it's okay. We can manage. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Okay, great. Are you following the elections? The results pouring in right now. And what are your first impressions?
First impressions. It's hard to understand your question, because if you're asking about my first impressions on the numbers rolling in, that's a different story than what is my first impression. It's very too early to.
That's true.
Call the election.
True. Yeah. Okay. I'll rephrase the question then, because you were very vocal, like half a year ago, about Bernie Sanders. You thought that Bernie should be the top candidate for the Democratic Party, and you were very disappointed when finally Joe Biden got to be the candidate.
Well, let's review that history a little bit.
Yes.
In fact, my enthusiasm was beyond just having an opinion. Together with two of my art professional colleagues, Lauren Boyle of the Dis Collective and Jennifer Tietz, who is an independent curator and researcher, we organized a large campaign amongst artists internationally to garner support and signature for Bernie Sanders. We were able to gather more than 7,000 signatures of support amongst artists from around the world, including some very big names, but also many artists and art professionals that are not very well known. The whole point of our campaign was to basically make a point about how since US politics affect the world, people from around the world should have an opinion about who get to be the American president.
Yes, of course.
And right around the time that the signatures were adding up and the campaign was getting very exciting, came the news of the pandemic. And within weeks of that, Bernie Sanders dropped out of the campaign, very surprisingly, and left many of us sort of like disappointed. Actually, the cracks in his campaign were very apparent to some of us who have been around in politics for a long time, particularly in his choice of his campaign manager, who used to be the chief of staff for a very well-known centrist senator who used to actually be the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, Harry Reid. Ever since he picked that fellow as his campaign manager, we were not very sure about what direction he goes. But as you know, you usually put your faith in your political leader until he shows that he didn't deserve to be the leader. So a lot of voices kept intentionally quiet about certain aspects of Sanders' campaign. And I only became critical after he quickly capitulated and dropped out. And I say capitulated because for a lot of us who have been around politics for a long time, the COVID pandemic actually was creating the best condition for campaign to press for some of the key aspects of his run, namely universal healthcare and more social programs in the time of such economic and social upheavals that we entered right after this the pandemic hit in the early to mid-March. But surprisingly, rather than doubling up on his claim to candidacy, he dropped out.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we didn't really hear anything about Bernie anymore since he dropped out. Correct?
Yes, he's been active in his own region of Northwest Vermont and other places, and a little bit on online. But really, no, you're absolutely right. And this was a very very disappointing moment, not because we had dedicated so much time and energy to the campaign, but because it made it kind of like made a lot of us go back and think about rethink about why did he even choose to run if he wasn't really serious about winning the nomination. And for a lot of cynics, and I'm not sure about that for sure, but for a lot of cynics, his second run was nothing but to basically compensate how he felt bad about contributing to the loss of the Democratic Party in 2016. So he came in to basically fold the socialist forces and the leftist and progressive forces into the Democratic fold by signing a pledge from the early on that he would campaign and he would support whoever becomes a nominee rather than challenging the Democratic National Committee all the way to the convention.
Yeah.
This, in fact, was very disheartening for a lot of us who thought about millions and millions of people from the lower income, working class, and immigrant families who had donated, who had taken money out of their essential needs to support his campaign. Mm-hmm. And it was very serious. If you imagine, he had more money raised for his campaign than any other candidate, but he was so willing and ready to capitulate so early. So this is the background to why I was very disappointed with him dropping out.
Yeah, well, you were not the only.
The last point.
Yeah, you were not the only one, I can assure you. But does it mean that, to a certain extent, the same scenario that we've seen in 2016 may unfold again this time?
Absolutely, as we see, the way I look at it is that the American public, particularly the educated middle class, people who pay attention to the media, have been under 4 years of severe propaganda campaign against Donald Trump. This does not make Donald Trump a saint or a better person or a good president. But if you think of it, this 4 years of relentless propaganda actually was completely ineffective and would have continued to be ineffective had the COVID crisis not happened and Trump hadn't handled it so awfully. Mm-hmm. So, in fact, the COVID crisis was a gift from heaven for the Democratic Party and the centrists, because without it, undoubtedly tonight, Trump would have swept most of the electoral votes. And if Donald Trump stumbles tonight, it's only because of his mishandling of the COVID crisis and nothing else. Mm-hmm. Because none of the hurdles thrown at him by the Democratic Party and the establishment and the media really worked. From the Russiagate to the impeachment to his choices of Supreme Court, he won every single one of these battles one by one. None FBI probe, none of these things worked on him, and he just walked through all these. And had he been a little bit smarter, a little bit more statesman-like with the COVID situation, he probably would be winning right now. Mm. So the winning of the Democrats right now at this moment is no indication of any kind of change in American politics. It's just sheer luck for Democrats to have been aided by this devastating crisis, if I'm making any sense. There's nothing to celebrate for them. If they're going to win this because millions of people got ill and hundreds of thousands of people died, well, that's nothing to celebrate for Democrats. And they really still face a very big crisis in terms of how they're going to handle the right wing or populist or nationalist discontent in America. And, from the other hand, Donald Trump would have not become the candidate of the Republican Party without the Republican National Committee agreeing to it. It wasn't like Donald Trump emerged from a vacuum. Certain people in the Republican Party in 2015 and 16 decided for Donald Trump to enter the race and not be stopped the way that Bernie Sanders was stopped in 2016. And it was a very big risk for the Republican Party to let someone from the world of entertainment, someone really not known in the establishment segment of the Republican Party, to come to the race, totally disrespect and basically walk all over known senators and people like the Bush clan, like Rubio, like all sorts of people who were very much ahead of him in terms of the ability to become the candidate and kind of like snatch the nomination for the party and then go on and win. Yeah. So they took a big risk, and this risk was paying back. Donald Trump brought with him a new kind of politics, a very scarier kind of politics, but definitely a push forward, basically a move forward in the wrong direction, forward in terms of offering something new but scary, but nevertheless new. Now, again, this form of politics is in trouble right now because of certain mistakes that Donald Trump has made. But it doesn't mean this kind of politics going away. It's still a new form of politics. It's still much more fresh. Please don't forget that this, just because it's fresh, is not justified. It's fresh, but it's scary, but it's fresh. Mm-hmm. It's a fresh form of doing politics in America that sure right now in this moment is in trouble because of certain mistakes that Donald Trump has made. But this form of politics is still fresher and newer than anything the Democratic Party is offering if you just compare it to the kind of politics that Joe Biden is offering. What is Joe Biden? Joe Biden is basically a ghost of FDR in the corpse of Bernie Sanders. Really?
I was calling Donald Trump the Ghost Rider. You are probably also familiar with the old song by Suicide, Alan Vega, from the late 70s.
Absolutely.
And we played it, and I thought that Donald Trump was the Ghost Rider, but maybe you're right, and Joe Biden is a Ghost Rider as well.
Now, and in the world of politics, both of us are from an older generation. We understand how it works. Once certain standards become broken, once certain new precedents are made, these things cannot be reversed. Donald Trump cannot be reversed. Whatever he's brought to American politics is there to stay, unfortunately. And no amount of wishful thinking and resorting to some past glory and some old norms of decency, which Democrats hope to reestablish, is going to work. Democrats have to learn the Donald Trump way of politics, because that's the new way of doing politics moving forward if they want to win. Mm-hmm. If not, the Republican Party 4 years from now will come back with a new Donald Trump, which is stronger, which is more willing to play with the party, but will follow the footsteps of Donald Trump in terms of doing politics, and it will crush the Democrats again. Someone like Tom Cotton, the Senator Tom Cotton, or someone even scarier than Cotton. So I don't see any hope in the kind of like near or middle or long-term future for politics in America, mostly because of colossal failure of the Democratic Party to basically offer a way forward, which is not to the wrong direction, but the right direction. So basically what we're facing, maybe this is a good place to end, is a choice between moving forward to the wrong direction or moving backwards to the wrong direction. Because what I mean by the wrong direction is the old neoliberal prescription, which is a wrong direction, but it's actually something from the past. And as we know, the history always takes the side of forces that are moving it forward, not to the past, because time moves forward. So unfortunately, between going back to the wrong choice or moving forward to the wrong choice, history goes for the latter, not the former. And that is really what we should be concerned about, whether Trump wins or loses tonight.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for this rather depressing commentary.
You're welcome.
But let's see what is happening, because you were right. It's too early to draw any conclusions.
Are you following the numbers online?
Yes, we do. But it's kind of it's unclear. Let's put it like that, huh?
Absolutely, it's very.
So probably we don't even know by 5 o'clock this night who's really going to win. But
totally. Well, thank you for including me in your program, and thank you for providing me a chance to air my opinion.
Yes, thank you very much, Mohammed. Let's talk. Let's talk soon. Bye bye.
Sure. Bye bye.
Dit was Mohammed Salemi from Berlin. With a rather depressing
but
story.
It sounds like he's right. So,
I propose that we include somebody who is on the Zoom connection right now with G. Mm-hmm. If he's still there, he is. This is Dwayne, but maybe Geert.
That sounds good.
No, not Geert. G should introduce himself. Let's see. I have to plug around a little bit and then put the sound on, and then probably we can talk. Okay.
I don't know if.
Can you hear me, guys?
Can you only later maybe?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. G, can you maybe introduce Dwayne?
Yeah, Dwayne. Yeah, Dwayne is a friend of mine, and we know each other for quite some time. But over the last few weeks, I discovered a political activist in him, and Dwayne is from Canada, and we sort of got into politics even before I joined Patterpool. So, I suggest you interview Dwayne yourself to open the thing up, you know.
Yeah, but I need to know a little bit about Dwayne before I can do that. So just a few sentences about what he is, what he's doing.
Criminal, political, gentle, down to earth, comrade.
Okay, Dwayne. Well, welcome to the show.
I just own the criminal part.
Yeah. So maybe because this is not a real introduction, of course. Maybe you can say something first about yourself, who exactly you are.
Well, I used to be a journalist. It was a long time ago in Canada.
A journalist, okay.
Yes, yeah, and from there, I was a politically active. I was a political activist as well. Since moving to Holland, I've lived in Holland now for like almost 30 years.
Can you? I have to interrupt you because the sound is very shaky. Can you try to go
this help?
Closer to the microphone or something? Because that is better.
This is better?
Yes.
Okay. So I've since coming to the Netherlands about 30 years ago, I've been working at a number of different jobs, but my recent past, let's say I've been a wine expert, a wine consultant.
Okay. Well, just share your thoughts with us a little bit about what you see happening over, because you are in Canada right now. That was
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm here, but the focus here being, of course, I'm not American. I'm a Canadian.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That does differentiate.
So you have a different view on the situation.
I have a different view on the entire American political system. It's very different from anything that you or I know. And like in Canada, we have the British parliamentary political system, and in Holland, you have an even better system, which is basically proportional representation, which allows a broader spectrum of different parties with different ideas, become part of the governing body. But in America, it's basically a broader choice of different parties with different ideas, become part of the governing body. But in America, it's basically a broader choice of different parties with different ideas, become part of the governing body. But in America, it's
I think it's a bit difficult to do this interview, I'm afraid, because the sound is still dropping away quite often and we cannot really follow you. I'm very sorry for that, but it just doesn't work that well. So
it's okay.
Let's do something else, I suppose. Okay, thank you very much.
It was strange that because there was a repetition also of a kind of echo.
Yeah, but it's just too noisy and too crappy. It's not good. And it's not Dwayne's fault, of course, but it just doesn't happen to work. Okay. But it's almost 3 o'clock, so we have a different guest waiting already.
Yeah.
In Brussels, and his name is Anton Jäger. I guess nobody really knows who Anton Jäger is, so I have to introduce him a little bit. Anton is a political scientist from Belgium who works and studied in London, if I'm not mistaken, and who wrote a couple of very interesting books about modern day politics. So I assumed that he would have a very special view on what is going on in the United States right now. Also because he's an expert on populism. So let's see if we can talk to Anton for a while. I'll try and phone him now. Oh shit.
Oh, I see.
Doesn't seem to be there. That is strange.
correspondent Kimball says that Trump has won over Florida.
Maybe we should call Kimball for a second. And then try Anton a few minutes later.
Wie heeft dit verzonnen? Who thought of this music? Cabaret Voltaire. Thank you, America.
What do you think? Who do you think? Dus even kijken. Kimball kunnen we beter... Kimball we can better call in the old-fashioned ordinary way. So let's see if I can do that quickly enough. Yeah, it's a pity that didn't work out with Dwayne, but okay, never mind. Oops, this is a bit hard.
Hello?
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, Kimball. We have to speak English, if you don't mind.
Ja, Biden just won New York. En Trump heeft een kleine length of a neck. Even kijken, that's 51 against 48 in Florida. And 97% is counted, so seems that Florida will go to Trump.
It seems that Florida, but everybody thought that Florida would be one of the key states. So if Florida is going,
nee, it's Texas. Texas is going to be the key, the biggest key.
Okay,
and
looking good. My bet was that Pennsylvania would be the key state, but that these votes will only be counted by Saturday. I just heard. So
Biden is leading in a landslide in Pennsylvania.
Is he?
66.8% against 32. So he has double. So he's leading in Pennsylvania, Biden now. But he's, even kijken, still don't have enough, die mannetjes.
Yeah,
electoral college,
electoral people or whatever they are called in English. Yeah, okay.
Keystone Cops, Okay, but it seems that the spurt, the first run, is won by Trump. It looks like he's going to win with a landslide. But now it's getting interesting.
Okay, but you say that Pennsylvania will go to Biden, but how many votes are counted?
100%.
How many votes are counted there? Is there any idea about that?
Even kijken, Trump is leading in Michigan, 16 votes. Electoral votes, that's the.
Yeah, but there's a difference between the percentage and electoral votes. That was the problem in 2016 as well.
Yeah, they say it can take 3 days to have the final decision in Pennsylvania, the county.
Okay.
Trump is leading Virginia and Georgia as well.
Okay.
So it's looking pretty good for Trump right now, but still we're not there yet.
No. And what is your idea about the whole situation? Who do you think is going to win?
Initially, early on, when the corona started, I thought, this is going to be Trump easy win. Then I thought Biden would win because there's a global initiative and a very strong political force for the Green Deal. So that has to be pushed through. So therefore, maybe the powers that be will put Biden on the throne. But we don't know what kind of tricks are played behind the scenes, of course.
No, okay, but
as we call it.
But what do you think right now? Do you think that the Trump?
No, I'm feeling that Trump is winning.
Okay.
Yeah, don't be surprised when you wake up tomorrow.
That
there will be 4 more years.
That you will be in for a nasty surprise once more. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I don't think it. I think it's less as a surprise than 4 years ago. But
yeah. Okay, well, keep us updated later on. We're going to try and phone Mr. Anton Jäger once more in Brussels. He said that he would be up by 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's already past 3, so let's see.
Okay, I want to give you a very quick update of another American world-famous actor called Johnny Depp, who just lost a lawsuit yesterday in London against the Sun. The newspaper, The Sun, who called him a few years ago a woman batterer, but he's going in appeal, so we'll see what's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah, I was afraid that you would say that Johnny Depp died because you are.
He wants to die and reincarnate into Louis de Funès.
Probably.
Oh, really?
Probably. Okay.
That's what he said.
But maybe that's something for our regular Thursday show. But okay. So let's talk later tonight and keep an eye on the results. Bye bye.
Okay. Ciao.
That's why I wish.
Okay, that was our host Kimball, who is tracking the results at home. Yeah, well, let's try one more time to see if we can get Anton Jaeger online. That would be nice, of course.
Patapoo Seriously, Je maintiendrai, is a radio show with news, politics, activism, and art. Maybe he fell asleep.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, let's try later. Maybe we just switch to David then. David Garcia is in Brighton right now, and he used to be our special Brexit correspondent. But of course, Brexit has already happened, so we don't need that anymore. But he has also an opinion about the US and what is going on right there. So let's see what David has to say. I hope he's there. Oops.
Oh.
Hi, David.
Hi, David.
Hi. Our ex-special Brexit correspondent from Brighton. Good evening, good night.
You're very faint on the... I'm just going to try and turn up the volume.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, that's better.
Can you hear me?
Better,
yeah. Okay, good.
I can hear you, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Are you following the developments right now?
I'm following the developments, yes.
And can you share a first impression with us?
Well, the first impression is it's much tighter than people were hoping for. And it's pretty disappointing that Florida has gone for Trump.
But is that already clear? Is that
yes, that's clear. That's clear.
So it's not even too close to call. It's going to Trump.
It's going to Trump. Florida is going to Trump.
But don't you think because people were saying that if Trump would win Florida, then he would win the election, or is that?
That's not true.
Okay.
It's the other way round. If Biden had won Florida, Biden would win the election.
Okay.
The Trump has got a very, very narrow road to victory, and overall, it's still looking positive for Biden, but not the kind of landslide that would put it beyond doubt. So it's looking, it's looking disappointing. I mean, in the last election, Clinton won Florida, and I remember going to bed feeling vaguely reassured, only to be woken by the bad news in the morning. But this time, unfortunately, it hasn't gone to Florida.
No.
Actually, yes.
No, I understand. So, but you say that it still looks good for Biden. So you are slightly optimistic. Is that a good way to phrase it?
Yeah, I retain my belief that Biden is going to win. but I was hoping for a sort of surprise landslide, if you like. That's clearly not going to happen.
Yeah. And what are your more general...
So hang on.
Yes.
Trump leads in Florida with 90% of the vote connected.
Count.
So they're projecting for Trump to win in Florida.
Yeah, it's not sure yet. Okay.
It's not absolutely sure yet, but it's looking very good for him.
Okay. But what are your more general thoughts about this election? Because like all of us, of course, you would like Trump to lose. But then again, Joe Biden isn't a very attractive alternative, or is he?
No, he's not. I mean, I think the fact that American democracy, in fact, all our sort of liberal Western electoral democracies are in terrible trouble, and the fact that we have two candidates of that caliber on, that America is forced to choose between Trump and Biden shows that if they're the answer, then the current state of democracy in America must be the wrong question, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's as though I've heard basically our collective democratic process described as not necessarily dead, but going through a very severe midlife crisis, and that Donald Trump is like the motorbike that midlife crisis men buy when they're desperate to reclaim their youth.
It's nice that you use that comparison, because you weren't listening, I assume. Before I phoned you, but I made a comparison with an old song by Suicide, Alan Vega, called Ghost Rider. And I told my co-host Bart that I thought that Trump was actually the Ghost Rider that they are singing about. Oh, he's playing it right now in the back of our conversation. But yes, it looks like that what is it? Allegory that comparison is quite apt.
Yeah. I mean, I see Biden in a way as all his policy notions, on some level, are kind of diluted forms of what what a truly radical democratic proposition would be. But his main appeal is that he represents the off switch to Trump.
Yeah.
He's the one means of unplugging us from the Trump nightmare. And I think that's, the Trump's systematic use of fiction as a political method is something which Biden would release us from. But the trouble is, he's got no fiction of his own to replace it with.
No.
And I think, after the huge relief of ridding ourselves of that toad sitting on top of us and occupying rent-free our mental space, it's high time for him to be evicted. But we can only hope and pray that he will be.
Yeah, sure. But like you said, is there any guarantee that Biden will do just that? I mean, he may win, but will he help us to really get rid of Trumpism? That is the key question as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think we're going to be faced with a very interesting question, because one interview that Trump did when he went in for the for the presidency, when asked why it appealed to him, he said, and you can never fault Trump for dishonesty on some level, that he was doing it to become the most famous man in the whole world, and I think he's really succeeded in doing that, and when he leaves office, he will still be the most famous man in the whole world, and we're going to be faced with a very interesting phenomenon in the age of celebrity politics, celebrity populist politics. What does the most famous man in the world do when he doesn't have the power of the presidency at his fingertips? How does mass fame on a level never before seen translate into a new kind of politics? What happens when you have ultimate fame but without political power? Does he find new ways through tapping his base to translate it into a new kind of political power that we haven't seen before? I mean, he describes himself as a genius, and people laugh at him for doing so. Mm-hmm. But I think he's demonstrated that actual genius has got nothing to do with IQ, but with the ability to remake the world, and he has succeeded in doing that.
Yeah. But can you give an example of what he might be able to do after he is evicted or no longer president, to kind of keep using his power, so to speak, to wreak havoc on all of us?
Well, I think his power comes from transforming, the ultimate morphing of American political life into a reality TV show. So the logical thing for him to do would be to go back into the media, but on a truly massive scale, to transform the media into a more explicit form of politics. I mean, the show that made him famous was The Apprentice. I don't know if you get it in the Netherlands.
No, but we've seen examples of it.
You've seen it. We have our own sort of tiny, sort of pathetic version of it in Britain. But I mean, I almost imagine him doing a version of the version of The Apprentice, but for the new president. I can imagine him really going back into politics to complete the circle. He's transformed America. He's taken the logic of the Reagan era, and transformed America into another reality TV program. And I think he will try to complete the circle by going back into the media and using his media presence and the incredible power of that global fame to recreate the potency of mass media into a new kind of political tool. I mean, people like the Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi tried to effectively did that in Italy. But I think we could see, but of course Italy's a small country in comparison, but it was still a very potent, influential experiment. I think one could easily see Trump doing the same thing in America, but on a global scale, with the kind of the might of the Hollywood of the reality TV machine, but financed to a Hollywood scale to redraft political media for the new age.
Yeah. You mentioned Berlusconi, and I was thinking, some people have compared Trump to Berlusconi, or said that Berlusconi was the first example of the kind of political figure that Trump has become as well. But if we look at Italy these days, that might mean that we are in for even bigger troubles, because after Berlusconi was ousted, we got Salvini, and Berlusconi was an asshole, a criminal, and all these kinds of things, but he wasn't a fascist. Now this Salvini is, and this may be happening in the US as well, as far as I'm concerned, because probably Trump himself is not a real fascist as well. He may be a racist, but he's not a fascist. But there are lots and lots and lots of followers and supporters of Trump who belong to the fascist or the neo-fascist camp. And somebody else may stand up after Trump is ousted and take that role. Do you think that is possible?
I do, and I think I know who it is. I think it's going to be his son. Donald Trump Jr. is like Trump, but more so, more exaggerated, but also more efficient, clever on some level, because the one slight thing that has ameliorated the Trump presidency is his own lack of concentration. Trump loves the spectacle, but very often he'll start a project but lose interest. He doesn't have the Teutonic efficiency that accompanied, say, German fascism, which was not only malign and evil, it was also extraordinarily efficient and precise in the exercise of its power. Yeah. Trump doesn't have those levels of concentration. He hops from project to project like a butterfly, going from flower to flower. His son is a different proposition, and he's been campaigning very energetically. And if you hear Trump's son, you hear something that sounds far more like a prototypical fascist. So I agree with you. I think in some ways, just as you've pointed out, what followed Berlusconi was in some ways, closer to fascism than, it was fascist, in fact. There's no two ways about it. And I think you're right to point out that there's something about Trump that falls short of fascism. And I would say the element that falls short is his lack of competence.
Yep. I think so too. Now, when Trump came to power 4 years ago, there was a lot of mentioning about the role of meme culture in getting him elected. Pepe the Frog and stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about. The one thing that came up back then was the figure of Trump as a kind of God emperor. If you can still recollect. Well, if we take that, let's take that seriously for a moment. What happens if the so-called God Emperor is deposed by way of democratic elections and becomes something that you just mentioned, a kind of media tycoon or whatever, who is relishing in his personal wealth and power and dealing out all kinds of favors to his subordinates and whatnot, I mean, that sounds, or that seems like a kind of plausible future, don't you think so?
Well, it depends how much potency that future has. I think one thing that's worth remembering is that liberal electoral politics and democracy is now quite a bit older than it was in the 1930s, and its institutions are a little bit more solid. I mean, so far, although Trump has rocked the Constitution and rocked the institutions, they have remained more or less intact and have been able to frustrate Trump along the way. And I think this election is going to be a real stress test for those institutions to see just how robust they are. But I don't think it's like the 30s when those institutions were much younger and the populations were much younger. I mean, right now, the demographics of our countries is that it's overwhelmingly governed by old people. And old people are, in terms of the majority of the people in our democracies are old rather than young. That's one of the things that separates it from earlier times in democracy. And older people are less volatile, less willing to risk the ranch on radical change. And I think that is the one thing that will stifle some of Trump's more radical and alarming propositions for world domination, will be the fact that the populations at large will be unwilling to to discard the institutions that they've become attached to. Not necessarily because those institutions are working well, but that human beings tend to be very reluctant, particularly older human beings, tend to be very reluctant to push something aside which they got used to. So I think the age of the democracies and the age of the populations living in those democracies, I think, will mitigate against the kind of transformation that Trump in his current form will bring about.
Okay.
So that's what I think. I think it's a dangerous time, but I don't see it leading to that kind of collapse into a new fascist authoritarian state where democracy and elections are really done away with.
Okay, I definitely hope that you're right, but maybe as a last question, yesterday I got scared quite a lot because of a tweet that I stumbled across, a tweet from Trump, which was issued, I think, in the night of the 1st to the 2nd of November. And it said something like, today it is 16 years ago that Theo van Gogh got killed by a Muslim terrorist in Amsterdam. This was the end of the fine city of Amsterdam, and then there was some kind of weird allusion to Pim Fortuyn as well. And it made me think, there are all these weird connections in politics, and they date back much farther than 2016 when Trump became president.
Yes.
And but what freaked me out a bit was that I immediately noticed that on Twitter there was a popular hashtag called Pim Fortuyn, and lots of Dutch people were voicing their support. First of all, for Pim Fortuyn. Secondly, for Trump. And thirdly, for the Forum for Democracy of Thierry Baudet, which you could say is the present day Pim Fortuyn. So there is this undercurrent, this dirty undercurrent in politics all over the world, but especially in the West, I would say, that is really threatening the kind of democracy that we have nowadays. So I'm not that pessimistic, but I'm a bit more pessimistic than you are, I think, when I see things like this.
Yeah. No, I could totally agree with you and see where you're coming from, and I would even extend that to our own Boris Johnson, who sees himself as a mini Trump as well. And, it's very interesting that, I don't know if you know, but Nigel Farage, who's our kind of the most populist politician in the UK, the one who basically initiated the whole Brexit movement, was introduced by Trump in one of his rallies, because he's been going up as a kind of warm-up man for the Trump rallies. And Farage was introduced by Trump as the King of Europe. So clearly Trump does see things in monarchical rather than democratic terms, and I do think that this election is so important because Trump is like the universal torchbearer, the global torchbearer for populist far-right politics, and it's reflected across the world. And certainly Johnson is praying for a Trump victory, and not least because they kind of get on well together. All these guys get on well together, these strong men with their fascistic tendencies. Yes, I can see where you're coming from, and the fact that I think and hope that the institutions that support our imperfect democratic frameworks are more robust than you do, and I think people will be reluctant to discard them and that includes these populists who I think want at least the camouflage of those democratic structures. But I think probably if they become too powerful, they'll succeed in hollowing them out from within, so that rather than tearing them apart, they'll be hollowed out from within until they collapse under the weight of their own contradictions.
Yep, I think you're right. Okay, thank you very much for this enlightening conversation. Well, let's hope for the best. I mean, I really don't know what the best would be, but probably the best will still be that Trump is ousted and that Joe Biden will become the next president of the U.S.
That's his function, to pull the kill switch on the Trump nightmare. I still hope and pray he will succeed, but
we'll see in a few hours or in a few days, and we'll get back to you after that, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
At the moment, it seems
Bye, Menno.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, David. It seems to be 80 for Sleepy Joe and 51 for Trump.
You mean kiesman and electoral, whatever they are called.
Types. So that's for now, and that's with just very little counted. So we don't know a lot.
No. Okay. Yeah, it's 3:30 already, and the next person in line for an interview is Jacore Arthur from the U.S. Actually, he is from Kentucky, from Louisville, Kentucky. But apparently he has not surfaced yet in our Zoom conversation that is also, or Zoom meeting that is in progress right now. So we have to wait a little bit, and maybe in the meantime we can still talk to our friend G, who is preparing to go to bed. If I yeah, it looks like that, but maybe he's still in for a short conversation. Let's see. So I'm gonna try and call him.
Oh, this is so exciting. This waiting for people. Are they there? Will they talk? What will happen?
Hey, Menno.
Hey, hello, hi.
How are you?
Well, are you going to go to bed?
No. It's just a useless light. You cannot see me?
Yes, I can. Of course, I can see you. But it looked like you were going to sleep. But maybe I'm wrong.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just lowering the lights down.
Yeah, it's kind of black.
But, well, I'm still here.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Hey,
hang on. I'll improve it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there you are. Okay. Hey, yeah, it's a shame that didn't work out with Dwayne, but maybe some other time. We are waiting now.
There's a lot of subjects that we can discuss with Dwayne. He did an interview with Hunter Thompson, quite a legendary interview.
Uh-huh.
He reported on torture in the Canadian police stations, and he's been involved in students' resistance in the 1980s and 90s in Canada. So he's
okay.
We can
maybe in some other context we can. Huh?
Yes, definitely.
That sounds like a good idea.
He's a friend of the show by now.
Ah, okay. Are you following the developments?
No, because I was listening, quite fascinated to you guys.
Uh-huh.
And
any comments?
I'm going to follow the developments now, but I'm not going into the mainstream media. I'm looking for some French commentators like the Progressive Voice, maybe Karl Kalinski, although Kalinske is on with Joe Rogan now, which is a bit boring, but the majority report, the Jewish Progressive Station in New York, is an interesting one because you get results and commentary at the same time. I'm going to avoid the Young Turks because they're a bit too hysterical, and but no, I'll be looking for the French commentary, and the results will be more or less the same everywhere. So I'm more out for a good analysis from now.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And you can see me now, guys.
Yeah, we can see
light
you.
On my face.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, great.
Well,
I cannot see you.
But do you have any thoughts
in the past?
Any thoughts to share? Hey, who the fuck is that?
That's the real news.
Okay.
Election.
Well, just that I was walking to my kitchen and back, and I was thinking, we've been talking about the American elections on Radio Patabou for such a long time now, and our analysis are quite sharp because most of the things that we predict truly happen 4 to 6 weeks afterwards, so we're quite keen and on it. But I was thinking, suppose Trump wins, I suddenly realized we really are in a historic moment, and we've been working up to that, for the last 6 months with the whole crew. And in the end, we sort of get lost in the details. But when you paint it with a broader brush, it is about survival of the planet, isn't it? Because if Trump wins, we can forget about the planet, and that very often gets overlooked in the details and in the incidents and into the day-to-day scandals. But that's basically what it is. So
yeah, that's true. But I'm not really optimistic about the future of the planet when Biden wins as well.
No, me neither. But you need to look for hope somewhere. And. It's getting more grim. So I'm basically a bit more anxious and a bit scared about what's going to happen in the coming next hours and days and weeks. So that's. If you ask me what thoughts do you want to share with me, then it's that we truly are in a historic moment right now, and we're in the midst of it. So it's all very exciting, but also. Scary as well.
Yeah, you talk about the future of the planet, but I see it more as a struggle of civilization against barbarity, as seen from one side, and from the other side, they think of protecting the historic way of human life against anarchy, and I don't know what kind of abortion and Satanism and. Child abuse. I don't know.
Well, I don't suppose you're just converted to QAnon.
No, I just try to see what the parties are thinking, because
that's even that's even more absurd, because there are already two. QAnon conspiracy theorists heading for the Senate, that's already done, So we will have two of those lunatics in the Senate. So that's, that in and of itself is absurd,
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't any good outcome. There's only bizarre and weird outcomes from now on.
Yeah, probably. But are they also reptiles? That's what I wonder about. And whatever happened to these black helicopters of the United Nations that were such a plague in the 90s, or was it the Zeros?
Well,
they're gone.
I don't know about the helicopters, but when the reptiles is interesting. Did you see what happened to Mitch McConnell?
No? Did he become a reptile?
Yeah, his skin got blue. He got blue spots on his limbs and on his hands and on his legs, and they were photographed. And the impression was that he was changing his reptile skin for his human appearance for a change. Oh. But the real story is that he had COVID. And COVID isn't a lung disease. It's much more a disease of your cardiovascular system. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that have COVID end up with black stains underneath their skin, so sort of bruises as a result of leakages in the cardiovascular system. So he probably had COVID, but was able to keep it out of sight for the media. But he is very ill at the moment, Mitch.
Hey, I'm looking at the results page right now.
Okay,
and,
what do you see, Menno?
What?
What do you see?
And well, it's not looking very good, you know. Like Kimball already said, Florida, or David said it. I think Florida seems to go to Trump. He with 93% of the votes counted, he has a margin of +3, so that seems safe.
Oh man!
Georgia goes to Trump as well, and that is with a margin of +15, which is huge, I would say.
Fucking hell.
I think it's Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and then and Michigan. Which is also an important state, is also going to Trump, but we have to say that only 20% of the votes were counted there, but he has a margin of 20% there, so that's a lot. It's a real...
Whoa. And there's nothing in from Wisconsin and Pennsylvania yet?
No, Pennsylvania is 90% counted, and there Biden is leading with 12%. So that's
quite good.
Yeah,
and Wisconsin?
I don't see that.
Okay.
I don't see that.
Because Wisconsin is really important as well.
Okay. Yeah. But
is there any news from Texas?
No, not yet. No.
Okay.
But
oh man,
it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't look good at all. No.
Anyway, we're gonna try and phone somebody else now.
Of course.
Unfortunately, the guy from Kentucky is still not online, so something went wrong there. But maybe he will come later. I think we now gonna call Rebecca and
Timmermans.
What?
Rebecca Timmer.
Yeah, Rebecca Timmer from the Bijeen party in the Netherlands.
Yes. Nice.
And we'll ask her a few questions. Yes, okay.
Nice.
Hey, thank you very much. And maybe talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Patapoe serious in Amsterdam, but also in Berlin, covering some things around the American elections that are taking place.
Yes. Let's see if I can find the right phone number. I should, of course.
Nee, deze zouden we niet rijden.
What the fuck is this? Okay. Oh, this is a bit loud.
Ja?
Hey.
Hallo, Rebecca Timmer. Dit is Menno Grootveld van Radio Patapoe Serieus Gemente en Dre. Ik was vergeten je te vertellen dat we vanavond eigenlijk het interview in het Engels moeten doen. Ik hoop dat je dat niet erg vindt.
Kan mijn best doen.
Omdat onze vrienden in Berlijn de stream doorprikken en die spreken natuurlijk geen Nederlands. Dus ik ga je wat dingen in het Engels vragen als je het goed vindt.
Ja,
oké. Ja. I'm talking to Rebecca Timmer. She's a member of the Dutch party Bijeen, which you could roughly translate as together, I think, in English. Bijeen is a relatively new party in the Netherlands and is composed of people of all colors and also quite a lot of women. So in that sense, already it's a very interesting party in the Dutch political landscape, but they are also pretty progressive, if not radical. So I thought it was a nice and a good idea to talk to a member of this party about what is going on in the United States at the moment with the elections. Because one of the issues, of course, that is playing in the background are the Black Lives Matter protests that were occurring since the murder of George Floyd a couple of months ago. And these killings, not just of Floyd, but of other people as well, had severe repercussions all over the globe, also in the Netherlands. So welcome, Rebecca. Maybe first of all, what do you think is going to happen? Do you have any ideas about the situation right now, and more generally, if I mentioned the killing of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests, what is the impact of that on these elections? What do you think?
Yeah, well, first, I don't like to make predictions. Like, I don't know what's going to happen.
No.
I'm watching the news right now, and I think it's going to be tight. We're going to see later on tonight. I think the Black Lives Matter movement is very important in these elections because it's about a very institutional thing, about a very elemental thing about American society, and it's that the American society is a racist society. And whether it's going to be Trump or it's going to be Biden, there is this problem of institutional racism in the United States, and it has to be solved.
Yeah, it didn't go away when Barack Obama was president. So in that sense, even he was not able to get rid of that institutional racism. So it's a very hard and very deep problem in the U.S., I would say, and not only in the U.S. By the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big thing. I think racism is like the foundation the United States was founded upon. The United States was founded upon slavery. It was founded upon apartheid. It was founded upon colonialism. So if you make a state out of colonialism, how do you expect it to be a state of equality? The United States of freedom. It cannot be freedom for all people if it is founded upon colonialism.
No.
And so the solution lies in a bigger revolution, I believe, in American society. And we're seeing that revolution already by the Black Lives Matter movement, protesting in the streets and saying, this is where it ends. It is also a cry against capitalism. It's action being taken against the way the economy is being organized in the United States. It's a very big movement, and it needs the very big problem of institutional racism needs a very big solution.
Yeah. Now, most people think that black people in the U.S. and, for that matter, also Latino people and people of other ethnic minorities are supposed to vote for Joe Biden or for the Democratic candidate because the Democratic candidate would be the one that takes care more or less of their interests. But is that really true? Do you think that, for example, if Joe Biden becomes the next president, that there will really change something in this institutional racism issue, or are you a bit pessimistic about that?
Well, I am pessimistic about it. I don't think it will solve anything. But first, I think we need to see that Trump is a fascist. Trump is a racist, a blatant racist. So obviously he won't solve the problem and he won't help us anywhere near a solution. And then there is Biden, who is saying that he's with the Black Lives Matter movement, he is anti-racist, he's calling Trump out to be racist. He's chosen Kamala Harris as his running mate to send this message, like, I'm with black people. But is he really with black people? Like, is he gonna solve institutional racism? Obviously not. He's not even ready to defund the racist police in the United States. He's not about to hand over any climate solutions against climate racism and environmental justice. He doesn't have a plan. We don't see a plan, and is he able to give a plan, to make a plan? Because he also is a capitalist. Capitalism is a colonial system, so he won't solve it. So that will be something we'll be watching from the Netherlands and seeing what happens if he wins.
Yeah, you make a very interesting connection between racism and capitalism, as far as I'm concerned, because I would say that is actually the real issue. And that is also something that a lot of people are not mentioning or forgetting about. So they suggest that you can solve racism without getting rid of capitalism. I don't think that is really true. But of course, that is even more problematic in the United States, because that is the capitalist country in the world. So only because of that, I think it will be a very huge order to really erase racism from the U.S. What is your idea about that? If you make that connection,
agree.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with you. Capitalism is also the base of the United States, and when we're saying we're gonna end racism, it also has to mean an end to capitalism. Capitalism in itself is a way of production that profits off like a lot of people just for the benefits of a small group of people. And of course, in capitalism, it's organized in a way that black people are always exploited in favor of white people. And that's the way the system works. So how are you going to redesign it to make it work for everyone? And that's a big question that I don't think will be answered to these elections.
No, I don't think so either. Now there is also the question in the background, of course, of this terrible disease, the pandemia, COVID. It means that, well, not just in the US, but all over the world, elections will be influenced by that as well. Do you think that because relatively many people from the black communities and from other non-white communities are relatively harder hit by this disease, that makes a difference in elections, or is that bullshit?
I don't know. I'm not the one. I don't think I'm the one to research it, because I'm not a scientist in that way. Mm-hmm. But I think that it will add to the way that non-white communities are being more involved into politics. Like when your community is hit harder than other communities, you will eventually see the structures that oppress you and oppress your communities and will politicize you. So I think in a way it adds to the situation of COVID, adds to a more political environment in more communities.
Yes. I agree. I think I agree. Okay. Hey, I'm gonna thank you for this conversation and for your ideas about what is going on. Let's hope for the best, and let's make sure that something like Trump will never happen in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Not now, not next year with our elections nowhere.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Patapoe, seriously, on.
This was Rebecca Timmer from Bijeen, or Together in English.
News, activism and art in Amsterdam, Berlin.
I noticed that somebody was popping up in the Zoom connection, but he dropped out again, which is not very nice. Let's see if we can get him to present himself again. And otherwise, I think that we need to talk a little bit to our friends in Berlin, because actually that was the whole idea of this collaboration, that we would also chat a little bit with them, and we didn't do that yet. So let's try if that is going to happen. And after that, we can maybe call our friends in Portland. What do you think?
Yeah. I completely agree. Let's do that.
Okay. First of all, Paolo and friends in Berlin. If they are still there, of course, but I think they are. Yep. Let's see. Oh, wait a moment. Hello, Paolo. Hello.
Hey, yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Finally, you are there. Hi.
Listening and relaying.
Yes. Hello, Paolo.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay. Now I hear the relay. Do you hear that too? Hi. Hi. Finally, you are there.
Hey.
Hi. Yes. Hello, Paolo.
Oh, I have a weird feedback.
This is going to be a very funny conversation.
Oh, I have a weird feedback though.
And now I hear the relay.
Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. I'll come back.
Okay, that's great.
No,
okay.
I was only joking. Oh, nou is hij weg.
Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. I'll come back.
You did that. This is going to be a very funny conversation.
Oh, I have a weird.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm gonna have to fix that. I'll come back.
Okay, that's great. Okay.
I was only joking. Oh, nou is hij weg.
Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. I'll come back.
You did that. This is going to be a very funny conversation. Oké. Het begint een klein beetje chaotisch te worden, maar dat maakt allemaal helemaal niet uit.
It's to be a bit chaotic, but it doesn't really matter.
Ik ga iets heel anders doen. I'm gonna do something quite
really
different. I'm gonna try and call this Anton again, because he may have miscalculated 1 hour.
Let's see what the loop is sounding like.
Let's see. Okay, that's great. Okay.
I was only joking.
Black man progress, and all along the way, black men have strayed, searching to find the way. Oh yeah, and how long will it be till you black men see the hidden brutality?
Malcolm, Malcolm X.
I'm gonna try to phone him.
You are
at
full
an
of ideas.
ordinary line.
An ordinary.
Because I think that is the problem.
Maybe that's the problem. Yeah.
Are you gonna repeat everything that I say now?
Just translate if you forget to speak English. So this is still Earl 16, the third version of Malcolm X, with Mad Professor.
Who the fuck is that?
Ja, goeiedag.
Hallo Anton. Dit is Menno, Radio Pattenpoel, serieus, Amsterdam. Goedenavond, goedenacht kan ik beter zeggen.
Ja, absoluut. Goedenavond, goedenacht.
Hi. Vind je het erg als we het gesprek in het Engels doen? Want we hebben een connectie met onze vrienden in Berlijn. En die zenden dit ook uit en die verstaan geen Nederlands.
Nee, dat is geen probleem. Nee, doe maar zeker.
Okay.
Ik ga gewoon even wat thee bij halen. Dus ik ben in 2 minuutjes terug.
Oké, is goed. Dan bellen we over 2 minuten terug.
Nee, maar ik blijf maar aan de telefoon. Ik ben in 1 minuut terug.
Oh, 1 minuut, oké. Anton Jeger.
Oké.
Brussels.
Ja, thee. Toch? Thee halen.
Dus je ziet dat die andere... Now we will have the other guy in the United States on Zoom as well. Yeah, he did.
Strange logic. Okay.
Ja, hallo.
Hi, Anton. I'm gonna talk to you in English now,
yes,
because of our listeners in the US. Well, first of all, are you watching the results?
I've been watching the results quite closely.
And
in an American channel.
And do they match your expectations or not at all?
Well, I did a kind of very speculative and wild bet on another Trump win, not with the actual hope of him winning again, of course.
No.
But it does seem like that speculative bet is now paying off. Yeah, I mean, my two options.
And what made you think that Trump might win again?
I think there are several factors. The first is just too many of the structural factors which gave him a lead in 2016 haven't really disappeared, no matter how dramatic and how big the pandemic and even the ensuing economic crisis have been on it. But at the same time, there are just like deeper structural factors at play, which haven't really disappeared since 2016. And I think it was a mistake for Democrats to underestimate the presence of those factors even today.
Okay, can you elaborate a little bit on that, on these bigger structural things?
No, that given the setup of the current U.S. electoral system and how it is weighted towards electoral colleges, and the fact that Biden banked so heavily for so many suburbanites to come back into the coalition, what he did was he strengthened the leads that Hillary already had in 2016 in all of the counties where she was leading. So he just got a bigger majority where she already had her majorities, while Trump at the same time did the inverse, where he kept his leads in the place where he had a majority. And of course, in a purely majoritarian proportional system, like in other Western democracies, this would actually mean that Biden would win, just as Hillary would have won the popular vote in 2016. But because Democrats can't seem to understand that, given the dynamics of the Electoral College, that's not how it works.
No.
It's just going to give a narrow victory to Trump again, because again he's just widening leads he already has, and Biden is widening leads Hillary already had. But that's not actually how you win elections in an American setting. So it's like a structural miscalculation in that sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the things that we didn't talk about yet tonight is the phenomenon that they call gerrymandering in the U.S., but it also happens in other countries, which means that the limits or the boundaries of the kiesdistrict and the electoral districts are manipulated, so that even if you don't have a majority when you count all votes, you can still become president. Is this something that you are referring to?
Yeah, so this has always been a problem in American elections in general. So, I mean, gerrymandering also happens in Britain, and it also happens in other Western democracies, but the US has a particularly extreme version of it. But it's mainly the combination of gerrymandering and the kind of anti-majoritarian, anti-proportional structure of the Electoral College, which makes these, these asymmetries in the American voting system so extreme. So what you're seeing now is that Biden is getting a big turnout in the most populous and the most demographically dense part of the country, which in a purely numerical vote would actually getting the majority, but he's actually not getting the votes in those tactical spots, which he should get them. And gerrymandering plus the Electoral College is a perfect combination. And it's still a very good playing field for Trump. It's still his ideal terrain. And the deeper question now is, if Democrats actually lose this election, hopefully there will actually be a deeper attempt to change the structure of American politics rather than just trying to accept the playing field which has been set up and then constantly losing to the other side because the other side has a structural advantage in it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that I get what you mean. Now you are a kind of specialist, I would say, on populism, on populist politics. So my question would be, what exactly is the role of populism in all of this, and what is maybe peculiar or really special about Trump in that sense? Can you say something about that?
Yeah, so as I maybe have said before, but I'm not particularly enthusiastic of using the word populism to describe Trump. I think mainly historically that doesn't really work in the US, and I'm also not sure that the word populism actually captures the most important features of the Trump phenomenon. So in that sense, I'm not particularly interested in that reading of Trump. But at the same time, it's clear that Trump is part of a broader movement and wave that's happening across all global democracies nowadays, which has sometimes been described in the terms of populist backlash or backlash against globalization, which are not particularly accurate terms, but they certainly indicate a very real phenomena. And what you're seeing is, and this is a process which is much older, but which is becoming very acute now, certainly after COVID, is that the material bases for consent in capitalist societies are eroding. They're becoming weaker and weaker. The kind of implicit contract you have between state and society today is becoming far more fractious. And in that sense, Trump is an entrepreneur, a political entrepreneur now, who has recognized that gap and realizes that contract is fracturing. And if he wins again tonight, it's just another indication that even if you don't want to call it populism, you still have to reckon with the fact of, there's a deep structural change underway in the way democracies are ordered and the way they operate politically. And it's becoming much easier to get people to consent to things. And Trump is, again, a very spectacular example of this.
Yeah. My problem is maybe that if you don't call it populism, what else can you call it? Because we have been talking about Trump as a kind of maybe proto-fascist on this show, but that doesn't really cover the issue as well as far as I'm concerned. Berlusconi was mentioned as a kind of precursor of Trump. in the sense that he became famous as a television, maybe not as a television star, but as a media mogul. So there are connections with that. But what would be the good, the right description of this kind of politics if it's not populism?
Yeah. No, it's a very, very good question. So I don't think populism is adequate. I also don't think the word proto-fascism or even fascism is adequate, mainly because historically Trump just doesn't have the same mass movement and party behind him that every fascist movement in history had. Trump also has no capacity for mass mobilization, or doesn't actually want to take the U.S. into a total war, which was a constant across all fascist regimes. So that's not going to work. At the same time, the comparison with Berlusconi is much more promising, and although you shouldn't over-theorize it, you can do interesting things with it. Because what we can see with Trump is that it's a very authoritarian form of celebrity politics. So it shows us the kind of darker side when the borders between show business and politics are completely blown apart, and the media and Hollywood just completely take over politics. And that makes it possible for some people to actually step into that void and to come up with a very, very authoritarian and very top-down variant of that celebrity politics. And in that sense, Trumpism is a kind of American Berlusconism, where it relies very, very heavily on the media, doesn't really have proper organizational structures, it's heavily focused on the executive as well. And maybe the final word which we can use for what we're seeing now is just Bonapartism, which is the word that Marx originally used in the 19th century, which is also the term he used for the French emperor that was able to unite all these poor peasants against the liberals. And make them vote for him under a sort of pseudo-democracy. And in that sense, maybe Trump is just a mixture of celebrity politics, an American version of Berlusconi, and then what Marxists used to call Bonapartism. And clearly, if he pulls it off tonight, it's a durable mixture. You can do interesting things with that.
Yeah. So suppose that he will pull it off, and that we are stuck with 4 more years of Trump and Trumpism. What do you think we can expect? Will it be more of the same, or will there be some fundamental changes?
I think if he does win tonight, it's going to be a disaster, not just for the US, but also for the globe. And I think that we will question whether the fact that we can blame the Democratic Party for this second defeat against so obvious and incompetent buffoon who also has a lot of COVID deaths on his name now. At least that should hopefully lead some people to interrogate the capacity of that kind of opposition. Are these the people we really want to be leading the response to authoritarianism in our society? Are these the people that are best suited to actually fight all these dangerous tendencies? Can they actually handle the job? So I do think you will see some interesting reflection on that question. Finally, I don't think Trump still doesn't have a policy plan. He doesn't actually have a plan to govern, and all of the kind of structural problems that were there before, when he was about to leave office, like COVID and like his economic outbreak, he doesn't actually have any convincing responses to it. I think what you'll have is, as Welbeck said recently, Michel Welbeck in a French television program, you'll have more of the same but worse. So it's going to be further destabilization, international disquiet, and internally he's not going to be able to solve all those domestic crises, and he's going to cover them up with an even heavier dose of PR and even more tweets and incendiary rhetoric. At the same time, there is such an element of randomness and contingency in contemporary politics that maybe something really unexpected happens and some big structural change happens. But I think that if he does win tonight, what we'll first see is just more of the same, but even worse.
Good. Well, not good, but good for the moment. Thank you very much, Anton Jäger. Let's talk again soon. And thanks for your clear insights. Bye-bye.
No problem. It's lovely. Thank you.
Bye.
Patmo, seriously. Je maintiendrai.
Oké, we gaan meteen door naar Jacora.
Yes, we're going to switch over to America.
Jacora Arthur. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Yeah, sorry for the delay, but it took a while to get you online. So we started another interview. So I hope you don't mind. Welcome to our show, Jacori. It is a very nice surprise that you actually said yes to this interview. I didn't expect that, but I was really happy that you did. First of all, let me shortly introduce you, because you are a musician, but you are also a councilman in Louisville, Kentucky. Maybe it's good because not many of our listeners will probably know you, not as a councilman at least. If you tell something about your political career.
So I decided to run for office because I come from a group of people who are not only black by skin color, but black by being neglected and left out of the rest of American society, left out in terms of wealth, left out in terms of access to housing, access to healthy food, access to living the American dream. I am from a group known as the American Descendants of Slavery. And I decided to run to better our conditions in the city of Louisville and really across the country at large. So I won my race. I'm the youngest elected official in Louisville history, and maybe even Kentucky history across our entire state of over 4 million people. And I'm looking forward to getting in office and bringing youth, but also that lens of being an American descendant of slavery, or ADOS for short, to people who haven't heard our reality or need to be reminded about our reality.
So Kentucky is a pretty weird place for somebody like you to be a councilman, if I'm not mistaken, because Kentucky is what we call a red state. It has been a Republican for quite some time. And even the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is from Kentucky. Isn't that true?
Correct. Kentucky is, without a doubt, overwhelmingly a red state, which is odd because we're called the bluegrass state, but we are a red state in terms of politics. Louisville, over the course of my life and really beyond, has been a majority Democratic voting city, and it's also the largest city in the state. So between Louisville and another larger city, Lexington, I would say we have some people here who lean towards the Democratic Party. But when you go across the entire state of Kentucky and you look at voting history in the past, it has definitely been a Republican state.
And did you run as a Democratic candidate for the council?
I did run as a Democratic candidate. The district that I represent is downtown Louisville and all of the surrounding neighborhoods. And when you break down the registered voters, we have a few thousand registered Republicans, 3,000 or so, and over 13,000 registered Democrats. So based on the numbers alone, it wouldn't have made sense for me to try and register as any other party. But I have to be very clear in saying that even though I registered as a Democrat to become a candidate, I'm a registered voter as a Democrat. My registration is a reflection of what is owed to us from the Democratic Party, because Black Americans, or ADOS Americans, have been voting overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party for 50 plus years. And in return, we have gotten mass incarceration where they've locked up so many black men. There's more black men incarcerated in this country than women incarcerated on the entire planet. We have gotten drugs flooded into our neighborhoods. We have gotten crime increasing within our neighborhoods. We have lost jobs. We have lost wealth. We have gotten nothing except for the short end of the stick from the Democratic Party for 50 plus years. So while we vote Democrat, it's important to realize that there's a turn happening. There's a turn happening with the ADOS movement, where we are demanding the Democratic Party to do right by us by making sure they give us something in exchange for those votes. Because so far they've only given us things that have destroyed our communities, destroyed our families, our households, and those days are coming to an end. And we might even see that come to an end as the Biden and Trump race plays out, where we see Biden barely holding on to certain states in this country.
So, if you look at this election, this race between Biden and Trump, let's for the moment think that Biden will eventually come out as the winner. Do you think that he will really change something for you, or in a way for all the people that have historically been repressed, been neglected, been put down in the U.S.?
Well, what's important to think about as we look to the future of the political landscape in this country is to never forget about the past of the political landscape. And people are so quick to use emotionally charged language such as racist or fascist when they talk about Donald Trump. But you have to check yourself and understand that he's only going to be in office for 4 years. And let's say he has been the most racist president in those 4 years. It does not compare to the level of racism that Joe Biden has not only preached, but also politically practiced while being an elected official for 47 years, almost 5 decades of racist practices through his politics. That is what we can't forget. And if we look at his past, if we look at his history, his voting history, his history when it comes to advocating for certain legislation, we have to come to terms with the fact that what he says now, what he promises now, might not be a reflection of what he's going to do. Because what you've already done has already damaged my community so much. How am I supposed to trust what you have to say now just because you want my vote as president? And on top of that, you're not even offering something of substance. You might apologize for mass incarceration in the 1994 crime bill, but are you trying to reverse the impacts of that crime bill? He won't even go on record and say that he supports reparations, even though this has been paid over time to millions of people who aren't us, between the Native American tribes to the Japanese Americans who suffer the internment camps. Reparations, direct payments have been paid. And he knows all about that because he has been in office during some of those payments, but yet he refuses to make a commitment for my group. And that is problematic. And because of that, I have no trust in Joe Biden any more than I have trust in Donald Trump.
But I suppose that you went to the polls today and you voted. And I also suppose that you voted for Joe Biden, or didn't you?
No, I wrote in ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, because we are here to send a message to these politicians who think that they can just come around every few years and try and dangle a political carrot in front of our faces and hope that we just give away our votes. I'm never giving away my vote again unless there's something for that vote. And he has offered me and mine absolutely nothing. So therefore, I did not vote for him, and I did not vote for Trump. I wrote in ADOS to let them know that they owe a specific group of people something. They owe us everything, because not only are we a part of this country, and we are a part of what makes this country rich and great, we are the reason this country is the richest and the greatest, because we built this country. My ancestors built this country, and they have never been paid for it. And we are suffering the consequences of coming from the institution of slavery. And Joe Biden has refused to acknowledge that. So because of his refusal, I refuse to vote for him.
How many people do you think are basically doing the same? Voting ADOS.
Right. I would hope we have upwards of over 100,000 people following suit. And it's just going to grow from here, because as we grow tired of the Democratic Party neglecting us, we have to respond. And that vote is going to be the way that we respond. And that vote has power. So we've been focusing on the down ballot races. We've been focusing on the Senate races, the council races, like myself, a council person who ran with an ADOS agenda. And we've been focusing on those races. If the top of the ticket offers nothing, then they get nothing from us. It's a very simple exchange, and we're trying to simplify politics to the point where you know that politics is an exchange, it's not a gift. We're not gifting our votes ever again.
And you don't really mind, I suppose, that maybe because of the way that you and other people vote, that Trump may still become president for the next 4 years again.
Well, Trump being president for the next 4 years, I've heard would be a nightmare for our country. I've heard that it would destroy democracy for our country. But what people have to realize is that's 4 more years. What is 4 more years to a group that has suffered 400 plus years of a nightmare, 400 plus years of not a democracy, but hypocrisy? And that is what we have been faced with. So no, 4 more years of Trump doesn't scare me, and it shouldn't scare anyone else who has endured 400 years of the atrocities of being a descendant of slaves and slaveholders. We are a special group in this country. We built this country, and I'm not afraid of Donald Trump. I'm not afraid of any politician. They should be afraid of us.
Okay, last question maybe. We had a conversation with a Dutch politician just before you came online. She's a member of a party that has a lot of black members and people from minority communities in the Netherlands. So in a sense, you could compare the party to the political views that you stand for. And she made a very interesting connection between racism and capitalism. Is that also an important issue for you? I mean, basically the idea is you can't really get rid of racism unless you get rid of capitalism.
Here's the thing. Oftentimes we try and intersectionalize racism with other issues. And when I talk about racism, I'm talking less about race, because there are plenty of black people who look like me but don't live like me. And that's less about race and more about lineage. There are countless black immigrants in this country who have more wealth than my family has. And I'm not just guessing. There have been reports after report after report. There's something called the color of wealth that broke down data in Los Angeles, where the middle black immigrant family was worth upwards of $100,000. And then you go up the ladder as well. You have white families worth more than $300,000. Asian Americans, Japanese, Chinese, and otherwise worth 400 plus. Indian Americans, who in some cases are darker than me, as we talk about race, worth more than $500,000 of household wealth. Meanwhile, the middle native black family, the ADOS family, is worth $200. So when I think about racism, I'm really thinking less about the race and I'm thinking about the lineage, because the lineage is what puts you in a certain place, not the race. And that's important for us to have a conversation about, because I think there's a mass confusion, not only across this country, but across the world, really, about the conditions that we face in this country. You aren't poor, incarcerated, and neglected simply for being black. You are poor, incarcerated, and neglected because your population and your type of black, ADOS, was brought here to be exploited. You were brought here to be a product, to be a consumer, not to be an owner. And that's important to realize. And when it comes to capitalism, I don't think that's my fight to even speak on. We're here to make sure we get the wealth that is owed to us. And if that means another group becomes the impoverished group, then so be it. We have been the impoverished group for 400 years. I can't put someone else's feelings or someone else's pain before my own. My people are here. My people built this country. My people need to get paid for that.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Bart. I'm the other guy. You said Biden made promises and you're not sure he's going to keep them. One is a bit more inclusive society and a government that takes more care of its citizens, like better wages. And these are promises that, well, he can keep them or he cannot keep them. But he didn't say anything about the police. And one of the major problems, I think, of America is the police and the judicial system. But he didn't say anything, so he can't even break that promise. What do you think about that? What do you think of that?
The issue with policing is triggering for this election, but we have to again go back in the past and have a realization. In this current era of politics, we have been seeing protests about the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, who was from right here in Louisville, Kentucky. But when you zoom out and you look at Black death that has happened over the past couple decades, and we think about Michael Brown or Tamir Rice or Sandra Bland, you have to come to terms with the fact that those deaths and the first wave of Black Lives Matter protests started during the Barack Obama and Joe Biden administration. And they did absolutely nothing about it. In fact, they created a Blue Lives Matter bill that protected police, but they didn't do anything to protect Black people. So I'm not surprised that Joe Biden is just continuing this tradition of not doing anything to protect Black people. Furthermore, it's important to know that police is a reactive measure. The police show up after a crime has been committed. They don't really prevent crime in most cases. I'm thinking about being proactive. They were designed to patrol and maintain and regulate the Black population. Our police department in Louisville was founded in the 1820s, and they were Klansmen. They were hooded vigilantes who went out and terrorized the Black community. They're doing exactly what they were created to do. But when you have wealth and you are in a position where you don't have to resort to a life of crime, nobody needs to call the police because that crime rate drops. And if nobody's calling the police, they aren't coming there to just shoot you randomly because you're taken care of, the community is taken care of. And when you have wealth, you also have a much more involved say in what happens in terms of policing, which we see happening across town in the more wealthier and white neighborhoods where they have wealth and they can control their police because they have their own police department. We don't have that because we rely on the city's services. And once we have wealth and we can create our own small city within Louisville, which is not far-fetched because there's almost 80, the Black community has 0, then we can start having conversations about how to reform policing that works for us. But right now, the policing doesn't work for us like it should be, even though we paid their salaries. It's almost as if they are working against us, and they have been working against us. Yeah. And Joe Biden has never been about doing anything in regards to that.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not good, but that's a good analysis.
It's
of
very
the situation.
clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But this ADOS, I had never heard of it before, and I regret to say, is there? You say there's hundreds of thousands of people.
Voting like that.
Is there also, I hear a thing about, say, reparations. That's a thing that's important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Reparations and a specific agenda for ADOS is at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. And we've heard so many day ones, I'm going to do this, this, and this for other groups from Biden's campaign. And we've yet to hear day one what he would do for us. And we are his most loyal voter base. And it's important for him to, if he loses, it's important for him to look himself in the mirror. It's important for the Democrats to look themselves in the mirror and question, what did we do wrong or what did we not do at all in order to turn out a vote to increase our support? And they're going to have to come back to us with some sort of agenda. Or better yet, they're going to have to come back to us and adopt our agenda. When you go to ADOS101.com, we have an agenda that's been there over 2 years, and the Democrats have ignored it. And as they ignore it, it's going to hurt them at the ballot box, and that's their fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for this very clear and enlightening conversation. Hope to talk to you again sometime, and good luck. Wish you being a councilman, and let's hope for the best for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Patapoe, seriously.
Yes.
Live on air.
Patapoe, serieus. Interview met Jacora.
Yeah.
Arthur, now I have a problem because it's already 4:30.
And you still want to interview 7 more people?
No, at least 1. But my computer is almost running out of steam, and I didn't bring my.
Oh, that's.
So My proposal is that we try to phone or Zoom with Brian Holmes still, who is waiting out there.
Yeah. I'm very anxious to hear him.
And after that, we can do whatever we want, but not with the computer.
No, that's okay, because we have the two Portlanders, if it works, then afterwards, from my phone. So then your computer can rest.
And I hope it will last long enough.
Yes, me too. The muziek wat harder. What the music you're hearing is Ghost Rider, but the version of course, the Sods from Denmark, from their only album of 1979.
Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider.
And for our friends in Berlin, let's try again to do a short conversation after Brian, but let's do it by telephone. Because apparently the wire connection is not really up to that kind of a talk. So my suggestion is let's try it by ordinary phone. I will call you. Here is Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Menno.
Hi. How are you doing, man?
Menno, the key word here is anxiety. How are you doing?
Well, we are doing all right. It's 4:30 in the morning here, so it's a bit late for us. But okay. I mean, we are up for it still, and we try to do our best to shed some light on this terrible. Difficult situation that you guys are in over at the other side of the Atlantic. Well, could you shed some light on this, Brian? What can we make of it?
Well, you're going to have to, like everyone, you're going to have to wait to make something of it, because this moment is total uncertainty right now. You know, it's not. There's no indication of a landslide for the Democrats. It's a cliffhanger. Every form of uncertainty brought by the pandemic is weighing over this thing. And the deeper uncertainty, I think, is really what attitude do people have towards the 21st century with all its dangers, you know? I think this is a bellwether for the world, this election. Its consequences go far beyond the U.S.
Yeah, because you were the one that wrote some very deep but also worrying pieces, for example, on the NetTime mailing list about what was going on in the U.S. and especially what might or would be going on if Trump would be re-elected. And this also had to do, of course, with the events after the killing of George Floyd and militias that turned out in places like Portland, Oregon. Are you still that pessimistic?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing that has been, really put on the table by the events of this year in the United States is the depth of neo-fascism and its indissociable relationship to racism and to the fundamental history of colonialism that I think was never measured as having the consequences that it does actually have. And those consequences are so profound because they not only have to do with the way that we relate to each other, but they have to do with the way we relate to the natural world or the Earth system, if you want to use that phrase. And that relation coming from the side of domination, of expropriation of extraction is a deadly one. And so I think that's why I think this is so fundamental, that the world is in the grip of a process where it has to decide, people have to decide, are they going to face the consequences of industrial development, or are they going to pretend that it's possible to go back to some happier version of progress that is totally unrealistic and is founded on hatred? You know, this creates a lot of anxiety. I'm feeling very anxious right now.
Yeah, okay. Did you vote today?
I voted a couple of days ago.
Oh, okay. And may I ask what did you vote?
Well, I voted for many things, obviously, for Biden and Harris, but also for some things here like a progressive tax in Illinois, and great senator we have named Dick Durbin, a very progressive guy.
Okay, so but it's unclear yet who is going to win this race. But suppose let's take a couple of possible scenarios. Like suppose Biden wins. What do you think will happen? Will we happily return to the era before Trump, as if nothing really happened, or will he somehow try to bring about at least some structural changes to the system to make sure that we don't get another Trump in 4 or 8 or 12 years or something? How do you see that?
Well, I don't really see it in those terms, I mean, I don't think that Biden is by himself a particularly important person. In fact, I think he's a weather vane. He's been that way throughout his entire political career. What's interesting right now is that we are the ones making the weather. That is to say, the progressive left has exerted a huge force on this candidate, making him into a very different candidate than he would have been. It's not only the George Floyd protests, which have been very important, but it's also the entire construction of Bernie Sanders and a huge concern about climate change that has changed Joe Biden as a candidate and provided most of his programs. So if he wins, then we have basically a chance at a Green New Deal, therefore at ending the fossil fuel industry, at shifting the center of industrial production to new forms of electricity, generation, and therefore shifting the composition of the industrial working class and its orientation, moving its center from Texas to a dispersion throughout the country, breaking historical centers of power in the extractivist industries, breaking the connection to the imperial military, which has been related to oil, production throughout the world and for ever since the Second World War, really. So I think that this will not be done by Joe Biden. This will be done, if it's done, this will be done as a process of social transformation pushed by many, many people from the grassroots up to the top, not only the grassroots. So if Biden is elected, there's a possibility. There's a possibility, and it has been stated. I mean, he was asked in the second debate, does that mean you would end the oil industry? And do you know what he said? On national TV, with everybody watching, the whole country, he said yes, in a phased way. Okay? But to say yes, I mean, that's this is a signifier of a tremendous possibility. And we all know, those of us who are not centrists, who are not liberals, but are progressives and socialists, we know that we're going to fight like crazy if Biden is elected, to push him in the direction not of something. It's no longer really a question of radicality. It's a question of doing what it takes to simultaneously overcome the inequality problem that's destroying the United States, and in the same motion, by creating millions of jobs, jump-starting a new form of industrial economy for the 21st century. So I think it's a big deal. I mean, I don't think it's inconsequential at all, or that it would be some kind of return to normal. I think there's a chance for a new departure point with this election. So that's one side of the question. Now that's the next question.
Well, I would say that this is all possible, but it's also possible that some people, for example, the people that belong to these militias or that believe in the QAnon conspiracy theory, or that are part of the Proud Boys or these kinds of organizations, are not going to tolerate what they see as the deposal of Trump. So that might have some serious consequences. How do you see that?
Well, this is the thing that, basically there's two things to fear. One is that Trump simply wins by the electoral process. That's possible, The second thing, immediately, if he does not win, then comes the problem that you're pointing to. I mean, there's on the one hand, there's a chance of something like an insurrection. I expect to see a degree of that, and I think nobody really knows to what degree this might happen. But there's got to be some degree of it, Then the other thing that's over a sort of somewhat longer term is, and that's unavoidable really, if we are so lucky that Trump loses, we're going to have basically something like a new phase or a rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan, the way that we experienced that in the 1900s and 1910s in this country, 20s also. In the whole early part of the century, you had a rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan, which is a kind of medieval type power organization based fundamentally on white supremacy. That is a daunting thing, because even if Biden wins and this possibility of the Green New Deal becomes concrete, there's still a lot of resistance to overcome, and especially in the extractive industries, and also in some of the really polluting ones like cement, steel. So yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think that that is true. Well, I mean, let's try and wait a couple of more hours or days to see what is going to happen, because the picture is not really clear yet. Apart from the fact that, like you said, the landslide that some people were expecting is not really taking shape right now. So it will probably be a close battle, maybe a battle in the courts even, or in the Supreme Court eventually, like it was in 2000 with Al Gore and George Bush. So let's keep a close eye on this, and I hope to be able to talk to you a little bit later on when we know a little bit more about what is going on. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I think it will be really interesting to talk about, because on the one hand, there really is a tremendous possibility to change things, to move things around. On the other hand, I really think that if Trump wins, it signifies a sea change for all the world, and especially for what we call the Western civilization. I think we would be looking at a fundamental change in the horizon of possibility that we all share, For me, it would not be comparable to anything else that has happened in my lifetime, because it would signify basically a movement into fascism.
Yes. Well, let's not hope it will come to that.
Yeah, no, but But this we're looking at it straight in the eye. So I mean, and right now it's not a question really of hope; it's a question of waiting.
Yep, I agree. Okay, thank you very much, and hope to see you soon, man. Okay, bye-bye.
Good. Yeah, bye-bye. Good to see you.
Okay, this was Brian Holmes from Chicago. Not a really optimistic story,
no,
but not too pessimistic as well. I still have one other guest waiting.
The Germans.
And then we still have the Germans. So what shall we do?
So your time planning was not so good.
Yeah, it was marvelous. Actually, we are almost completely on time. Apart from the fact that one big part of it fell out.
But then we still have to do 4 more.
I know. It's always the same. Pas te pour serieus, je maintiendrai.
Last week I was completely on time. But you weren't there.
Maybe that is the whole thing.
The whole egg eating.
Yeah. First of all, I need to change a little bit, so you can either talk or play some music.
So why can I not call with Portland then? In the time that you have to change something.
Because somebody is waiting, and I'm trying to hook. Yeah? I'm trying to call him through Zoom on my telephone.
Ooh. You dare stuff. No, this was, of course, this is stupid, de-exploited. Hey. Oh, ik wil hier geluid. I want sound here.
What are you going to do? Who will cover you when all your money is gone? Is the money all that matters to you? Is wealth and power all that you want? What the fuck's your values? 'Cause I'm bitch. I love you, lonely rich peasant. Profit, loves and leech, compassion, education, education, you're cultural. Let's go, right on, let's go, you're a greasy, greedy bastard. Fucking lobbyist, you're a greedy, greasy fuck. A sleazy piece of shit. Wealth breeds corruption, and corruption breeds hate. Hate brings war brings death, death, poverty, and destruction. If greed is life for, greed is die for.
Keep America great. Keep America great. Gotta stick to our guns. Keep the freedom we won. Keep America great. There will never be another USA. Freedom won't come back if we give it away. It's time to vote. It's time to pray. Let's join as one. Let me hear you say, vote Trump. 2020. Go Trump. 2020. Vote Trump. 2020.
This is Keep America Great by
Keep America First. Keep America strong.
Camille and Haley.
We are all in the fight for our God-given rights. Keep America one.
Republicans know that if actual representative democracy ever did emerge in the U.S., they might be equal.
Yeah. And we go back to Malcolm X. Yeah.
Poor Malcolm X. Poor Malcolm X. Poor Malcolm X. Poor Malcolm X. We're from our asshole up. It's time we get strong. Poor Malcolm. Poor
the hidden brutality.
But put seriously, Je maintiendrai goes on with interview.
We have another interview. This is Thomas Goki from what was the name of that organization again? Let me check my schedule. Yeah, the Debt Collective org. Actually, we would have liked to have Astra Taylor on the line, but she was too busy. Some people really have duties in the US to make sure that the voting and the counting of the votes is going okay. But it's very nice that we could talk to her colleague Thomas Goki, so I'm gonna phone him now. Let's see if that works. Of course it does. One moment, please.
Hello.
Hi, Thomas. This is Menno talking from Amsterdam. Hello, good night for us. Very nice that you can be in our show tonight. We had 3 hours almost of continuous conversations about the ongoing election results in the US. So you are the 10th or the 11th in line, but we are very happy to have you. Maybe first of all a few words about yourself, because some people might know what the Debt Collective stands for, but it's better if you can explain yourself a little bit.
Sure. I'm an organizer with the Debt Collective, and we are a debtors union trying to organize people primarily in the United States, but our analysis includes sovereign debt and is relevant to debt in other places as well. But in the United States, we have sort of a special relationship with medical debt and with student debt and housing debt. And so we want to organize debtors to collectively refuse unjust debts in order to create a different economic system and a different political system.
Sure. And how does that relate to the elections? Because, of course, if you talk about Trump, I think it's clear. You can forget about any kind of debt cancellation. He will just not do it. But what about Joe Biden? Will he be responsive to the things that you want to change with your organization?
Well, I think neither of them are going to be great, but I think that Joe Biden would be more responsive. And debt is in many ways impacting the election, especially during the pandemic, when tens of millions of families are facing eviction because they can't afford to pay rent. People have lost their jobs and they're forced to put basic needs on their credit card. But at the same time, even someone like Donald Trump has suspended all student debt payments, which we had been told for years was simply not possible. The truth is, it's always been possible, and now we've proven it. So I think that we can fight and win some major victories with the Biden administration, and things look very, very grim and bleak if we're dealing with a second Trump term.
Yeah, I guess so. Of course, the whole debt problem is closely related to the economic system that we have in the world, and especially in the western part of the world. You may also call it capitalism, as far as I'm concerned, because debt, of course, is one of the basic, how do you call it, ingredients of capitalism. I wouldn't go as far as to say that without capitalism there would be no such thing as debt, but we all know that the origins of capitalism lay somewhere in the late Middle Ages, when debt became much more important thing financially and culturally and socially as well. So in what way do you see your struggle connected to the economic system that we are coping with?
Yeah, we see it as an extension of labor organizing, just as workers organizing in their workplace have been a way to gain power over capital. With the financialization of the economy, we see debt as a potent factory floor, if you will, and one that hasn't been mobilized. And you're exactly right. Debt predates capitalism. It's as old as history itself. But it's playing a special role in this current time and place in a way that we think we can mobilize. And we've organized the first student debt strike in the US and have won over $1 billion worth of debt relief as a result. But unfortunately, that's just a drop in the bucket. We've got $1.7 trillion worth of student debt. We have $80 billion worth of medical debt. So there's a lot of work to do.
Sure. But of course, with debt, as with a lot of other things, it's like this, that on the one hand, there are lots and lots of people who have very serious debts, who cannot pay their debt payments or whatever. But on the other hand, of course, there are also people or institutions that profit from debt. So is that one of the things that you are also aiming at? Because that's not so much a political struggle, I would say it's a kind of economic or social struggle against certain companies or banks or institutions that are really the big debt collectors, so to speak.
You're exactly right. And these institutions and these forms of debt, they were designed to profit a small group of people, but they could be designed differently. And as they were designed, they weren't really designed with the idea of what would happen if a lot of debtors got organized and refused together. And it turns out that they're actually very fragile systems if we get organized. And the really difficult part is that organizing part. There's no shortcuts. There's no replacement for it. It's just like labor organizing. It's hard work, and we have the added difficulty that we're trying to organize strangers to a large degree. You know, people who have credit card debt with the same financial institution don't know each other. They live on opposite sides of the country, and so we really need to generate this sense that we're all in it together, and that we're willing to fight for someone we don't know, as Bernie Sanders said as one of his slogans.
Yeah, and does that mean that you will also have to deal with, for example, with people that are actually downright Trump supporters? Because quite a lot of the people that voted for Trump in 2016 and probably this year as well belong to the so-called white lower class, who are also for a considerable part steep in debt.
That's exactly right. And we speak to people who are sort of all over the political map. You know, some people who are anarchists and socialists, all the way to people who are Trump supporters. And one of the things that has been really frustrating to me as I talk to these Trump supporters is that I see that they would be willing to vote for a Democrat if a Democrat actually was willing to cancel their debt and pass policies that actually help them, like Medicare for all, college for all, the Green New Deal. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party has been very resistant to that, which has created a huge opening for Trump that he's exploited. I was just seeing and sort of marveling at Democratic strategists who have been scratching their head that not only did Donald Trump win the state of Florida, but those same voters who elected Donald Trump also voted to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which has been a left-wing campaign for years in the United States. And these Democratic strategists are just scratching their head. They don't understand it. But it's clear as day to me because I speak to these people all of the time. They're in debt. They're in debt in part because they aren't getting paid for the work that they do.
Yeah.
And the Democrats are just absolutely clueless, and they're getting decimated election after election because they spend all of their time talking to the people who fund their campaigns and are very, very out of touch with the struggle to just not die in this country. So things look grim. I mean, even the best case scenario tonight looks pretty grim, but I'm still hopeful that we will avoid some of the worst case scenarios.
Yeah, let's hope that you're right. Yeah, maybe a last question would be that if we talk about debt, one important, let's say, psychological factor is shame, because lots of people who are in debt do not really want to know other people that they are. So isn't that a big impeding force for your organization? I mean, if people are ashamed to step forward and admit that they have huge debts, they will maybe not so easily be convinced to become part of this bigger movement of debtors.
One of the things that we found is that it's a huge emotional release for a lot of people when they're finally given a safe place to talk about their debt. And you're right, there is a lot of shame about this, but if we reframe this, part of the function of that shame is that it individualizes us. It makes us feel like we're all alone and that this is our personal problem and it's our personal fault. And when we collectivize the struggle and we zoom out and say that, most of the debt we are in is not because we're bad people or that we made bad decisions, it's because our economy is designed to push us into debt. And so reframing that can be very, very powerful. And we've seen that as people start to discuss it openly, that it's very powerful emotionally, and it's very powerful sort of in terms of sort of flipping that switch from a place of powerlessness and shame to a place of power and political commitment.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. Well, let's hope for the best tonight. We cannot do anything else, certainly not here in Amsterdam. So I want to thank you very much for this conversation, and maybe we can talk again sometime soon.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
And say hello to Astra.
Will do.
Okay, bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Patapu, seriously, je maintiendrai. And now we're going to talk
This
to
was
the Germans.
Thomas Goki from the debt organization. What was it? Debtcollective.org. Now I want to try and talk to our friends in Berlin. Let's see if that is working, because I need to open still another app on my phone.
So you're using your phone?
Sure I am. Let's see.
So
sounds promising.
Yeah, that's modern technology.
He's not responding.
But you're late.
No.
Oh. Okay, but the sound was nice. We can say that.
Yeah, well, I'll try again. Wait a moment. There is another option. It's a bit more difficult, I suppose, but let's see. No, that is not a good idea.
Hello.
Hey, there you are.
Yeah, sorry, it took us a moment to shut down the Patapo relay.
Okay.
So we didn't get that crazy echo again.
Yeah. It was rather nice.
If you want.
No, don't do it again because I go crazy.
Shut down Patapo. No. So now we have to cut the stream that we're relaying you. So now we're just back to our own globalista stream, but with you speaking to us. So now we have to cut the stream. Fascinating interviews, and really enjoyed hearing all of those perspectives. Things are kind of grim, but I'm kind of missing a little bit this energy of, like, we already knew no matter what happens with this election that we need to organize and fight, and so we should be prepared for that.
Yeah,
and, I think maybe not get so lost in this this grim thing of losing this election. The election was this ugly theater that we kind of want to ignore as much as we possibly can, I suppose. But of course, we know it's brutally being imposed on us, and yet still, I want to remain kind of energetic about, like, yeah, we're gonna fucking be there to organize together our communities to say no more on so many levels, and that's just what we're gonna have to do. There's no choice.
No, I think you're right, but actually these, glimmers of hope, or whatever you want to call them, were mentioned, I think, but in different ways, like, for example, the guy that we just spoke to, this Thomas Goki from the Debtors Collective, he actually said it, we have to continue the fight, even if Joe Biden becomes president, because all by himself he will not do what we want him to do. So we need some kind of social struggle to put pressure on him. But chances are a little bit bigger that he will respond to this pressure than that Trump would do that. And in another way, the same goes, of course, for the story of Ja'Cory Arthur, who is also kind of almost neglecting the struggle between Biden and Trump, and says,
that was fascinating to listen to.
Yeah, I don't really care even.
Clear on the strategy there, but the energy behind it is what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not.
I am looking at maybe a terrible source for getting numbers on the election, but Guardian is showing Biden pretty far ahead, but I guess it's not really tabulating the key states that have not been that are unknown.
Well, I think
stats.
It's 192 to 108.
192 for Biden.
Yeah, and 108 for
yeah.
The orange
these
guy.
are confirmed or projected?
It's just I just see these figures.
Yeah,
I have no
okay.
idea. It's
I just see 209 to 118, so it's quite Biden's far ahead. And from this perspective, but I almost feel like I can't trust the Guardian's way of doing the numbers here.
Well, it's got everything to do with the difference between projections and end results, you know, because I really experienced almost a déjà vu of 4 years ago when everybody thought that eventually Hillary would win. Actually, by a landslide as well, and in the early hours of the counting, it looked like that, and then suddenly it changed, and all the key states went to Trump, and that was what I would call a shock effect, and it could still happen, I think, right now.
Yeah, it's worrisome though, because I don't think the Democrats play as evilly as the GOP, doing things to manipulate those numbers as they come in. I just don't feel very trusting of how this gets tabulated anymore. Things are so corrupt, you know.
Yeah. Well, I guess we just have to wait and see what is going to happen. But maybe the lesson or the thing that we can take from tonight is that we should not be too much covering the election results as such, but keep an open eye for other developments like social struggle that is not related to any kind of electoral politics, but which is just taken out on the streets. And maybe that is a much more important issue than who is going to be the next president of the United States. Although I hate to see another 4 years of Trump, I have to admit.
Sure, I'm also very, very worried about that. I wanted to kind of, if there's time, just to go back to something that Andy Garcia's interview was pushing in me and thinking about society of the spectacle, because I'm doing a lot to analyze all the media environments that we exist in, the technological environments.
Yeah,
and it really making me think of, okay, this incredible ass clown that has, through celebrity and entertainment culture, become like at the top level of power of our planet, has something to do with this over-mediated culture that we've agreed to go along with. You know, it's not really what's happening on the ground, but it's like their ability to shove their stories down our throats through so many channels and so much power over the corporate media and the ways we get our information. And it's a little bit like, I feel like we need to strengthen our resistance to refuse to play along in the mediated games that we get swallowed up by. So we, you know, like the whole year and a half of the way that elections now are extended in the U.S. through this incredible amount of wasted time talking about these two parties battling it out. We somehow we go along with that too much, that we sit there absorbing it day after day after day, and of course we're exhausted and our brains are just numbed by all of that, and it doesn't really put us into the mode of like the debt collective is discussing real strategies on the ground with people. And I don't know, somehow I feel like we need to build up something that really is a way to create barriers to this the mediated narratives that drown us in their version of what's actually going on.
Well, I think you're right, but the main problem, of course, stays that the way to do that is to use media as well, but in a different way.
Sure.
So, for example, what we are doing right now is also media, but it's not the same as the mainstream or the corporate media, of course. So my answer to you would be yes, but still we have to use media, but we have to become much more effective than we have been the last 10, 20 years or something. You know, we lost our, I don't know, our touch or whatever you want to call it, and we need to take it back.
Yeah, well, of course, I mean, we both have been doing media activism for quite a long time, and we're always in this underdog territory because we don't have the billions of capital or whatever to throw at these things to have that much power over or the reach that you can have when you have that much money behind pumping your messages out. But there's something to think about. Like, okay, if we are still really pushing some kind of whatever, there's discussion on Net Time about whether the next wave of what is tactical media now, or the next way of using these tools. Maybe we have to be really a little bit more creative, that it's not in parallel trying to outdo what they do with media, but we're doing something completely different with ours. And I don't know what that is yet, but maybe that could help to expand our ways of using these tools that are somehow.
Yeah, I think that I'm not that pessimistic about it. I think it's probably going to be quite a long struggle. It will not happen overnight, and actually, if it would have, or if it would happen overnight, it would not be good. We have to just keep fighting, but we have to become, like you say, a little bit more clever and a little bit more creative than we have been the last few years, and then something will come out of it, I'm sure. The best reference that I can think of is the one that you already mentioned, the Society of the Spectacle, or what Guy Debord and the Situationists did. I mean, they were also a small group of people, but at least they were very creative and very clever, and they were able to use that power to create something that was much bigger than their own small constituency. So that is the way to go forward, I think. But it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, they did almost topple something, the toppling of the regime that was controlling the path of society at that time.
Yes.
And I'm the fact that we were collaborating on this tonight has really made me feel good about continuing with doing some kind of streaming in this Corona lockdown. And it's giving, we have to build these networks and figure out how can we use it in new ways.
I think we have to rebuild them and use them in like you say, in a cleverer way than we have been using them. By the way, that also goes for the way that we managed to do this thing tonight, because it could have been better, but let's keep working at it. And next time we will probably be able to include more of your voices in the program itself and in the whole production of the whole thing. But at least this was a promising start.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot easier for me when I have a co-pilot or something, and trying to do it all as one person in the studio can be quite difficult. But hopefully, we'll do another one and see what else we can try to experiment with.
Okay. Well. Yeah. Thank you very much, and let's do it.
Okay, we're going to continue a bit longer here at Globalista Radio.
You're going to go on. We are not done yet as well, because there are some people out there, I think in Portland, Oregon, still waiting for us to call.
I hope they're still waiting.
We can keep relaying and see where it goes. Yeah.
But you will go on till what time?
Sorry? How long will we go here? I'm not so sure about that. We're just going to play it by ear and see if we reach some of our friends in the US, and probably not too much longer, though.
Okay, good. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Pas trop serieus. Je maintiendrai with
that were our friends from Berlin.
News.
Globalista Radio Kit. Yes. Shall we try to reach Brian and Evan in?
I'm getting worried how to process this recording that we just made and how to get it online tomorrow.
Why?
Because it lasts so long.
So
because
what?
it will take me like 4 hours to write down what's in it.
You will have to do it immediately when you get home.
I know. But then
No.
I have to cycle home because there's no metro right.
Well, if we go on long enough, there will be a metro again.
Yeah. But then the broadcast will be so much longer.
Somebody is calling.
I'm calling Brian.
What?
Brian Connolly.
Oh.
Hi, Brian, you're still there. Hi, it's Bart here. You're live in the broadcast.
How are you, Bart?
Well, I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, you know, it's not the day I was hoping for.
So what would have been the day you were hoping for?
Oh, you know, maybe if like it was a little, I don't know. I'm not sure what to say. I need to keep my journalistic principles about me. I think it's going to be it's interesting because you know, President Trump has also managed. I was saying to somebody, the thing I'm most surprised about tonight is that President Trump has managed to not tweet anything for like hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was kind of expecting to see some kind of like, you know, wild Trump rant. I guess that could still be to come.
But do you think he has lost what many people think now?
That Trump has lost?
Yeah.
You know, it's anybody's call right now. It's definitely like I haven't been able to follow the stats well enough to see if it's definitely tightening up in places where they thought it was going to go differently. You know, it looks like you know, Florida's probably going to go for Trump, which, you know, if that's the case, you know, then there's a question about Pennsylvania, and you know, Arizona's still looking good for Biden, so, you know, it's kind of, we'll see. It's definitely looking tight and not in such a great way for Biden in a few places.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, he's got the lead in the electoral votes right now.
Yeah, but that we expected
You know.
that. But okay. So that's the anxiety that we taste when we talked with all people.
Well, I don't know, but the problem is that if I look at the figures, I see that Trump is winning in Florida, Trump is winning in Ohio, Trump is winning in Texas, Trump is winning in Georgia, Trump is winning in Wisconsin, Trump is winning even in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, and he's winning in Michigan. In my book, that means that he's going to be the next president.
So, I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm just saying that you know, if for Trump to be winning in Michigan certainly seems concerning for the Biden campaign. You know, there was talk. It's funny to think too that there was talk just an hour or two ago that maybe Biden was going to win Ohio, and now Trump is up by almost 10% there. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But it's kind of, I mean, it's sort of bizarre to me based on all the statistics that we've heard, you know, that so many people had voted early, that so many new, like young voters, so many more young voters were voting this time. You know, a lot of like those sort of specific stats certainly seem like they should be pointing towards Biden winning.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, that raises some questions for me.
What do you mean questions? Like if it's fair or someone?
Yeah. Like have they not counted all the votes in some places? You know, I mean, it's a kind of like really complicated thing happening, right? Where they're not. Some states started counting the ballots that came in by mail as soon as they came in. You know, other states started counting when the polls closed. Other states counted before the polls closed, but then once the polls closed, they only count the in-person votes, and then they go back to counting the mail votes. So it's really kind of wild when you think about it that way, in terms of like
it
how
makes it even
kind of
more insecure.
not-
You don't really know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
until they're finished.
yeah, like you're trying to figure out like what are you comparing to what? What does the math really mean?
I see.
You know, what do you all think? How's it?
I don't know.
What's the word on the street in Europe? Is Trump
Everybody's
gonna
sleeping
win?
here. We're asleep in
Everyone's
Europe.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody. You're awake.
We're
Somebody's
awake,
listening to you, right?
Well, but I don't communicate with them, so I find out tomorrow what they have thought. That's it. No, you can see that Biden was taking a lead all the time, a bit, and now he's still having for the electoral college.
He's going to lose, I'm sure.
And here someone's saying he's going to lose. We'll see. It's the system is stacked against Biden, so we know that already, of course. So that's shit. So, but how is it in Portland? I mean, election day. I know.
There's, it's been kind of quiet. Like, another journalist called me in the middle of the day, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Yeah, right." It's like there's been like nothing. There's been no ballot weirdness, no like conflicts, no sort of early daytime protests or anything.
Are there protests planned for tonight?
Yeah, I mean, there's a march right now. I was at the protest earlier when it was rallying, and I was with my family, so I went home.
Yeah.
I may go back out, but it sounds like they're just kind of marching around town right now, and so I think it sort of depends on, it depends on maybe how the vote goes. Some people thought they were going to march across the river and go to the go to Justice Center or go to Pioneer Square, which has been kind of a gathering point for a lot of nights, but they marched east, so that's the opposite direction, and they're still heading east as far as I heard. They're marching slowly, so it's unclear what's going on. There's a theory that they're just going to march around. And some of the talk was that the big day for actions are not going to start till tomorrow in Portland. The sort of like far left protesters that's what they've called for, is like action, a week of action starting on the 4th.
Okay, a week of action. That's good because
yeah,
we're
so
going to
the
call you back on
7th, the
Thursday.
4th to the 11th. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Biden has won Oregon. I just heard.
I'm shocked. Yeah, they've called all the West Coast for Biden.
Yeah, I'm shocked too. I don't know.
Maybe you should move to the West Coast.
Move to the West Coast.
No, Biden.
Biden should move to
Yeah,
the West
maybe,
Coast. Biden should
maybe.
just leave. Biden
I mean, there's like there's a small movement for independence for Cascadia, for the whole West Coast.
Yeah, that's always good. It's a civil right to split off from your country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be, right?
No, it is.
I mean, California is the world's 6th largest economy, right? So,
Yeah, you hook up with them, and you're safe. No, but okay, yeah, we speak with each other at the moment that we don't know anything, so it's
No, it's going to be Biden. No, sorry,
it's going to be Trump. Oh, it's going to be Biden. Oh no, it's going to be Trump. No, it's going to be Biden.
No, it's going to be good. Well, so I'll tell you a story. So in 2000, way back in 2000, 20 years ago, before I was really in the journalism world, I actually was a campaign worker for Ralph Nader on the national campaign in D.C. And so that night, on election night, we were at the National Press Club, all wondering, is Nader going to get enough percent to win sort of federal funding for future elections for the Green Party? and like, is George W. Bush going to become close to beating, like, how close is he going to come to beating Gore? But like, obviously he wasn't going to beat Gore. And then, you know, so with the party closed at the press club, we went to some bar. It was maybe 2 a.m. when we heard, oh no, they've uncalled it for Gore, now they're calling it for Bush. And, one of my colleagues was so depressed because he was like, oh, we lost the election. We threw the election to Bush. Well, what are we doing? We never should have done this. And to me, it's kind of like, well, you know, that's what we signed up for. You know, if you're running a campaign or you're part of a campaign for a third-party candidate, you have to know there's that possibility.
Yeah.
You know, of course, at the time, I was just 20 years old. I didn't know a lot about stuff. I didn't have a lot of thoughts other than kind of the Democrats seemed like a waste and this sort of thing. And then, you know, we were still up at like 5 a.m. when they made a new announcement. Now they've like uncalled it's too close to call for anybody. And Vice President Gore has called the Bush campaign to take back his concession. And, you know, then it went into like weeks of conflict and like back and forth with like legal proceedings. And it's what I think is going to be really interesting this year is that, you know, it could end up that actually it's not even close enough that it goes to a Supreme Court. You know, it could be that in the Electoral College, you know, things get sorted. I mean, the other thing that would be interesting, like right now, as of right now with the votes that are counted, at least it may have changed since they've called it for the West Coast, but prior to that, Biden was ahead in the Electoral College and Trump was ahead in the popular vote, which is like, no one would have thought that could happen. No. So that's interesting. And I think in the end, it won't go that way. You know, in the end, most likely, Biden will be up in the popular vote. Whether he wins in the Electoral College, you know, remains to be seen. And I do think that if he wins the popular vote, especially if he doubles the margin, Clinton's margin, because there's some people saying that he could win the popular vote by 7 or 8 million, and then he still loses in the Electoral College. I think the movement, so I think the movement to kind of do something about the Electoral College will gain a lot more steam.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay. And I mean, Portland has been working up to this day for months. So how does it feel?
You know, I think it feels... so certainly when we were at the... You know, certainly earlier in the day, it was kind of like, okay, well, what's going on? I mean, we had a pretty like heavy cold rains. It was kind of like maybe everybody just like holed up in their house. But then, you know, at this kind of gathering point for this rally before the march, there was a good number of people there, but not like thousands, you know, which I was thinking like maybe there'd be thousands. It was certainly bigger than it has been, you know, recently. It was certainly, you know, possibly multiple hundreds. Some people predicted maybe it was up to 1,000 by the time they started marching at around 7:30, about an hour ago. We'll see. I mean, I don't really know what the point is, you know what I mean, right today for them to be like kind of having a march, other than just to like keep reminding people that they're here and that people are out for Black Lives Matter and that they're not going anywhere despite the election, whichever way it goes. And I think that's kind of one of the big things we're hearing in Portland is that protesters are acknowledging that, like, you know, whoever wins, and by and large they support Biden to win, but that whoever wins, there'll still be a lot of reform necessary. You know, one bit of good news, interesting in Oregon, we're poised to be the first state in the United States to decriminalize drug possession, so that's cool.
Yeah.
The measure 110 with half reporting is currently up by 20% over the no's. The yes vote is 60 to no's 39, so that's cool. Certainly.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and then there's an interesting measure to allow the use of psychedelic psilocybin for treatment and supervised treatments. And that looks like it's going to win too, so that's cool. But it's kind of interesting, like how Oregon has this sort of libertarian streak. So like they will vote for certain things that are kind of like socially liberal, but then a huge portion of the state, like outside of Portland and Eugene, outside of the main urban centers, it's quite conservative. Yet there's large amounts of agreement on certain social issue type things, mostly about regulation, right? So like that's why there's potentially why the decriminalization of drug possession is going to pass. Certainly it's part of why you can get a firearm without any kind of permit or license. You can't have a concealed carry permit, but if you want to go get a rifle or shotgun, you just pretty much just go do it, and yet we're like a hugely like democratic state, and we may be about to like have a 2/3 supermajority in the state house. So it's sort of like it's a weird kind of a weird place to live, in that way.
Yeah. I see images as you tell me that. Hey, but that's nice, Brian. I think I'll call you back on Thursday.
All right, that sounds great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And stay safe.
Don't stay up too late. I don't think there'll be any results before dawn your time.
Right. No, we have to go to sleep. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
See you later.
Good night. Bye.
I'm not. I'm not sure if the Berlin people are still listening, but I assume they do. But my estimation is that Trump is going to win, because
we don't know today.
Yeah, we know, because the whole elections hinged on Pennsylvania, and he's going to win Pennsylvania. So fuck it.
Ja, het zal wel. Nee, dat wisten we eigenlijk. We wisten dat. We knew. We knew it was stacked. No, we all knew it was stacked against Biden. And
yes.
It's a minority who want to keep their power.
Sure.
Use anything to do it. And it's all stacked in their favor already.
Yeah.
So, well, they won. So it's tough.
And it works again.
But still, we're not sure, because it's not a definitive outcome yet.
Want to bet?
No. I want to see this whole play with all these courts and all these.
It's not going to happen. He's going to win.
It's less drama. I think. I saw this thing today. Who was it? This guy said there was no collusion with the Russians because Trump would have said it, because he tells everything.
That's probably true.
And that's a good point. Because you know this Article 2, that he thinks he has absolute power over everything, and that Mr. Barr supports this theory about Article 2 of the
but you know what the point is. I mean, there was no need to do any kind of collusion with the Russians. I mean, of course, the Russians tried to influence the elections in 2016. They probably did the same thing this year, But that's something else than saying that Trump knew about it, or that he actually asked Putin or whatever kind of entity in Russia to actively involve in the elections. I don't think so. I mean, that's a completely different issue, and why would he?
Maybe he was bribed. No, he was blackmailed. What about all this the compromat about Trump, or pissing on who was pissing on a bed that Obama had slept in Russia?
Yeah, I know the stories.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. It's Bart.
Hey, how you doing?
You're live in the air.
Oh yeah. It's a.
Introduce him.
You're in Uruguay, right?
What was that?
That you are in Uruguay.
Yes, I decided to get on a plane and go back to Uruguay where I had been living before because I was afraid of the election results. And it very much seems like my fear has been confirmed.
Mm-hmm. So what's your analysis of this election day so far?
Well, I mean, we're in the worst case scenario where it's likely that if they counted all the votes, Biden will win, but it's unlikely that we'll ever get to count the votes. And it shows just the massive structural problems that exist in the American electoral system, where the Republicans are now going to win their fourth presidency since 1988, where they lost the majority of the vote. So of the 5 times in the last 30 years that they've won the election, only once did they get a majority of the vote.
Yeah.
And it's just an absolute structural mess.
Yeah.
So no, it's going to be total chaos. It's going to be like, this is absolutely the worst case scenario, because Trump is going to get enough votes and enough indication that the Republican Party is going to line up behind him. And so we really are going to get just a very real direct conflict about sort of who gets to vote and what votes count and who's in power. And yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
And in local Portland stuff, the left managed to split their vote enough that the mayor is going to get reelected. So the mayor has 20,000 more votes than his challenger, but 35,000 people wrote in a different leftist candidate. So that write-in campaign was almost double the difference between the two candidates in the election.
I don't really get exactly. So who got elected? The mayor got elected again, Ted.
The mayor is most likely to be reelected, yes.
Yeah.
And the one of the 5 city councilors who was voting for defunding the police has lost.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're down to just 1 vote out of 5 to continue doing reforms and defund it. I mean, on the good side, Oregon decriminalized all drugs and legalized psychedelics. And in Portland, we passed universal preschool, so there'll be universal childcare for everybody in the city.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. But the national environment, this is the nightmare that everyone was afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and already in the last week in Portland, one of the towns right outside of Portland, police murdered a black man, and we had large rallies and vigils organized with his family, and right-wing Trump supporters have showed up and tried to drive their vehicles through the crowd and opened fire with live ammunition into the crowd, thankfully not hitting anyone. But that was before we had the conflict over this, just basic disagreement about who's won the presidential election. And I expect the repression against the Black Lives Matter movement and the other protest movements is going to be just massive. The hope was that, at least in Portland's case, we could get a majority to reform the city council. We could continue, there'd be some stuff. There was a referendum on creating a new police accountability commission that would have more strength of enforcing things, and that has passed.
Oh.
So there are some limited good things that have come out of this election, but to be perfectly honest, it's just, it's a structural problem. It's stunning that there's enough people that would vote that way, but the bigger issue is the fact that the U.S. is stuck with this 220-year-old, 230-year-old system that was created to be anti-democratic. And we're now seeing one of the two parties, the Republican Party, being perfectly happy, knowing that they can no longer win an election, and so choosing to stay in power by other means.
Right, tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that they've gotten to the point where they're admitting that they can never be a majority again, but they don't care. The other fascinating outcome of this election is we are seeing Trump and his Republicans essentially make the offer to Latinos that if they support him, they will be included in whiteness. And this is the same pattern that existed in the United States when Irish and Italian and Eastern Europeans and Japanese Americans were not considered white, and then were able to be sort of shifted in the way in which American values see it, so that they were included in the benefits of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. And that is what Trump offered Latinos, and enough Latinos are willing to take him up on that offer that's probably what will, get him reelected.
That got him reelected, you mean?
Well, we don't know for sure, but that's what the projections are at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not anymore in the United States. How is it to be out of the country into another country?
It's very surreal. It's completely surreal, and both a relief and terrifying for all of my friends, and very weird to having 2 nights ago been out in the streets with everybody protesting to now being 7,000 miles away in Uruguay, where I've lived for a long time and feel very comfortable and very at home. But it's also just so, everything is so laid back here and not in the middle of massive social conflict. I guess I feel some guilt over it.
Okay.
Hey, but it is completely clear that Trump is going to win, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
We are awake still.
Yeah.
It's,
there are 9 key
6
states.
in the morning.
Trump is going to take 8 of them.
Yeah.
Apart from Arizona, he's going to take all of them. How can Biden possibly win? He can't.
So Trump is going to be the apparent winner at the end of the night. That seems like what's going to happen. What isn't clear is whether or not he would actually win if we actually count all the votes. And so what we're going to do is have this pretty intense fight over which votes get counted. And that fight is going to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has been packed with 3 of the 9 appointees were picked by Trump himself, and it's likely that the Supreme Court will decide in Trump's favor.
Absolutely.
But
there you
that
go.
means we have months of conflict going forward.
But we have seen that coming for months also.
Yes, we've seen it coming, but
What can you do?
we were hoping that it wouldn't be the case.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is like, we're just going to see the gloves come off with the repression. We're going to
Everybody
see the
says
gloves
it,
come
no.
off with
Yeah.
right-wing violence.
You're still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. The gloves come off. I've heard these words in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and yeah,
Yeah,
we have
just-
to wait and see what happens really.
Yeah, we're going to wait and see what happens, but, we're going to, I'm very worried.
Okay, I like to call you back on Thursday if it's
Yeah, happily.
yeah for you in the afternoon.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thanks man, Evan.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Uruguay. Okay. Bye bye. Ja, toch een beetje eind aan het draaien. Draw an end to it.
Yeah,
This show
it's completely depressing.
Yeah. You wanted it.
No, I don't want it at all, but I think it's going to happen again. Like Dale Cooper said in Twin Peaks. No, it's happening again, Bart.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same story all over again. They miscalculated.
Well,
The Democrats
it's
did.
always,
And
we knew that the Democrats
they
were
underestimated Trump.
but they're stupid. The Democrat Party is a sick organization. It's something like the GVB in Amsterdam.
Apparently,
something like that.
no, it's even worse.
kind of-
I mean,
it's much
yeah.
worse than GVB. That's true. No, it's a sick organization. You have to destroy it completely and make something new.
It won't happen, but I mean, okay, let's face it. We are in for another 4 years of Trump. But then again, on the positive side, I would say it doesn't really matter. In the sense that it will not get worse. It was already pretty bad. So let's not exaggerate. I mean, he's completely crazy. You know, he's not a fascist. He's absolutely racist, but he's not a fascist, and he won't install a fascist dictatorship or whatever. But it's a disaster. But a Joe Biden presidency would also be a disaster. So it doesn't make any difference in that sense. The key question is what is going to happen after 4 more years of Trump.
During.
No, after.
No, it's what's going to happen now.
No, I don't think so. I think what is going to happen after 4 more years of Trump is much more interesting than what is going to happen in the next 4 years. But maybe I'm mistaken. Let's see.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah.
It's time to go home, Bart.
Yeah, I hear.
It's
sounds
rain.
that I'm not making.
It's raining outside. We have to go home.
Yeah.
Through all
and
this
I don't
misery
hear my
and
end tune loud enough. Why not?
This is
what I-
something else.
No, this program is now officially over.
But this is not our end tune.
This is the end tune. Absolutely. This is the horses that you always hear. Bye bye. Zwaai, zwaai.
Yeah. Okay, we will be back on Thursday.